Ma'am, first motto.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of WRC, I, Shweta Jain, welcome all of you today morning on the topic of direct tax provision enacted by Finance Act 2022. Before we start the session, I request everyone to put your hand on heart for the ICI motto.
येष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति येष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति कामं 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 कामपुरुषो पुरुषो निर्मिमाणः निर्मिमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्मा तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते तस्मिन् लोकः शतः सर्वे तदूनात्यति कश्चन एतद्द्वैता 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 एतद्द्वैता.
Thank you, everyone. Going forward, WRC is geared up for work and we will not leave any stone unturned to all level push the boundaries forward for every chartered accountant. And for that, we have very dynamic chairman, very visionary chairman, WRC, CA Murtaza Kachwala sir. And very thoughtfully, this year we have designed our theme as a lead. And lead is just not a colorful symbol or not just an abbreviation of leap towards excellence, achievement, and development. But this is a well-perceived program with various aspects that will ensure benefit of every chartered accountant in the region. And it is a combination of 5 goals. So I request now our chairman, CA Murtaza Kachwala sir, to please address to the participant. Over to you.
Thank you, Shweta. Let me first welcome speaker for today, CA Pankaj Jain. Pankaj bhai, extremely grateful. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation and joining us to share your knowledge. Thank you. Let me thank Secretary WRC Shweta Jain, Chairman of Direct Tax Committee CA Hitesh Pomal in absentia, and Vice Chairman of Direct Tax Committee and Treasurer of WRC Piyush Chandak for such a beautiful topic today. Friends, relevant topic, let us understand from the expert today. And I'm sure I have listened to him earlier and he will do it beautifully. So we are in safe hands, I should say. Coming to a few aspects at WIRC, there are 5 goals which we kept for ourselves in line with the theme lead. And I'll touch upon 2 aspects, 2 goals. One, to ensure that we equip our members technically on technical subjects. And in line with that, we will continue doing lectures on latest amendments, on latest subjects regularly on direct tax, indirect tax, etc. And every month we'll have at least 1 program on direct tax. At WIRC, we are also designed the direct tax refresher course, which is a signature program, and that will start on 18th of June, and we'll soon start the registration. Maybe in 2 or 3 days time from now, the brochures will be circulated and mails will be sent out. I'll encourage everyone, and the DTRC will be in physical format at Birla Matoshri near Churchgate. Would request participants to join for that. And we got the best of faculties from across. Similarly, just before we started this session, we are speaking to Pankaj Jain today, and we are working on RRC as well on direct tax. We are working on some publications and a lot of programs. So I'm sure a lot will come. So technical updation on various subjects, and not only the routine subjects, but we are also working on refresher courses on valuation, insolvency and bankruptcy, internal audit, risk management, data analytics, and there is a lot more. The second goal is on the IT front, technology front, and let me touch upon a couple of things. We are in the process of creating some tools and utilities, and like today, when we talk about direct tax, one utility, like say if your client keeps on traveling across on a regular basis outside India, and he comes to you in the month of January and wants to know how many days he needs to spend outside India, so and to maintain his NRI status. That time someone in our office takes the passport and starts punching in the dates of in, out, and then we calculate. Now you just have an Excel which you give it to your client and tell him कि आप अपना अंदर आने का date और बाहर जाने का date डाल दीजिए. He will automatically know how many days he was outside India and how many more days he needs to spend outside India in this financial year to maintain his NRI status. Simple. So you don't need to spend time. And these type of first set of 10 or 12 utilities will be available to the members free of cost. WRC is creating all of them. Will circulate by way of mails and also put up on WRC website. Now the second thing, we are also trying to tie up with various software vendors. And one example I can give you is a team of 3 young chartered accountants who developed a software on third-party confirmation. So this software will be available at a very concessional rate to practicing CA firms, and we can send confirmation to debtors, creditors, bank using this software. The confirmations will go on mail. If the ledger of the debtors or creditors comes, the reconciliation of ledgers will happen, closing balance breakup will happen, bill-to-bill analysis will happen, automatically will be done by the software, and everything will be available. And this software will be available to practicing firms at a very, very concessional rate. So which also multiple those type of things we are trying to tie up with software vendors. And again, we're doing a lot of courses. So like last week we did one, we started something on CAT tools, idea and data analytics tools. Today we launched a batch on Python and SQL coding. So there is a lot of action on the IT updation as well. We will encourage you to join various of these courses or programs and get your knowledge updated so that we can adopt this technology in our day-to-day life and make our life more efficient and effective. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining. I can see almost 80 participants, but the registrations are 300 plus. And I'm sure in the next 5-10 minutes, a lot more people will join in. So happy learning to all of you. And over to Shweta again. Shweta, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Sir, for briefing us about goals and activities further, and also various tie-ups of WRC, which is, I'm sure, going to help to our members. So, friends, today we are going to discuss on direct tax provisions enacted by Finance Act this year. So for that, we have very learned, very eminent personality, CA Pankaj Jain is with us. So before handing over to him, I request to Piyush Chandak for just a brief introduction. Over to you, Piyush.
Thank you very much, Shweta Madam. Thank you very much, Chairman Sir. CA Pankaj Ji, as we all know, is a managing partner of SBP and Associates, having offices at Marine Lines and Nariman Point. He cleared his CA in 2002 and thereafter completed DISA and LLB also. His core area of practice is direct tax, and he loves sharing knowledge, as we all know. His passion to share knowledge took him to teaching profession, which he pursued for more than a decade, teaching intricacies of direct taxes to students of PE2 and CA Final. Now he shares knowledge with the fellow members. He has co-authored a book on charitable trust published by JCAF, and he is very fond of old Hindi music and likes to read autobiography in his free time. With this brief introduction, I'll request CA Pankaj Ji to take charge and also help our direct tax committee to take further programs during the year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, PH Bhai, for your kind introduction. Thank you, Murtuza Bhai, Shweta Madam. So let's start with our analytical discussion on the direct tax provisions enacted by the Finance Act 2022. So the Finance Act 2022 was originally introduced as a finance bill on 1st February 2022. Almost 83 amendments were proposed in the Income Tax Act by Finance Bill. Subsequently, a Finance Amendment Bill was introduced on 23rd March incorporating 39 more amendments. Now, most of these amendments were basically some gaps in the original amendments or some new provision, but most of them were to just plug the gaps which were there in the original amendments, and they have introduced these amendments to ensure that these amendments are foolproof. We will discuss all those items as well separate in the flow of our discussion. And the finance bill was enacted as a Finance Act 2022 on 25th March 2022. So with this brief introduction, let's start our discussion on various important provisions concerning Finance Act 2002. As one of the most talked about provision as far as Finance Act is concerned is new scheme of taxation, virtual digital asset, which we normally know as cryptocurrencies and NFTs. So there has always been a debate, a discussion, a doubt as to whether these cryptocurrencies are legal or illegal, whether the government recognize, whether they are taxable, not taxable, at what rate they are taxable. So to do away with all these questions and controversies, they have come out with a special scheme of taxation under section 115 BBH. So whenever there is any taxation issue arising on account of cryptocurrencies and NFTs, especially, you have to refer to 115 BBH as far as the taxation is concerned. So it's a separate code in itself for computation of tax in respect of virtual digital asset. More or less, if you will, we will see that the provisions are more on line with winning from lottery. The provision which are covered under 115 BB, winning from lottery, they are almost similar. These provisions are applicable from assessment year 23-24, that is financial year 2022-2023, which means that till assessment year 2022-23, the income from DVA will be based on the general provision, the general understanding. Some may say that it is taxable as business income. Some may say it is taxable as capital gains or other sources. Some may say it is not taxable at all because we are not able to determine the cost of acquisition, etc., etc., etc. So all the interpretations and provisions are still open till assessment year 2022-2023. New provisions would be effective from 23-24, and most of these question marks which were there earlier has been resolved and has been addressed under this section. And the relevant section is 247, definition of virtual digital asset. Section 56-10 has been amended to include virtual digital asset as a property for taxability of gifts. If you remember, 56.2 talks about a provision where if you receive any asset without consideration or less than the consideration at less than market value, such difference is taxable. So this virtual digital asset has been included in the definition of property, which means this section would apply if you give a digital currency as gift to somebody, the recipient would be liable to pay tax on it as a income from other sources. Then there is 115 BBH, which we are going to discuss now, and section 194S, which talks about TDS. It is more to ensure that the transactions of virtual digital assets are all tracked by the system and by the TDS written in 26 years. So coming to the definition first. So definition is, though very technical, what it means to say is a virtual digital asset is cryptocurrencies. So they have given various forms and various technical jargons to explain the cryptocurrencies. And second is NFT, that is non-fungible token or any other token. Now, as you know, that this is such a evolving technology that every now and then there can be some new invention or some new way of looking at things, and to ensure that those all things can also be covered in future easily, they have provided that central government will have can notify any other digital asset as the central government by notification may specify. So that they have opened this definition to include many more such assets if they arise in future. As also the central government has retained the right to ensure that some of the digital currency or some of the NFT or virtual digital asset may not be subject to the rigors of this new section. Obviously, because the government comes out with their own digital currency or own NFT or something alike, they may come out with some exemption. So they have retained the right to include some other assets under this category, and they have retained the rights to exclude the digital asset. So whenever you come across the taxability, you will also have to look at the inclusion or exclusion as provided by clause C or proviso. So the definition basically now, as we all know, digital currency that is the cryptocurrencies are included, and NFT, non-fungible tokens are included here. There is no such notification which has been passed as yet, but in times to come, definitely there will be some additions to the list of digital assets. So coming to the section 115 BBH. Okay. Now this section is, as I've mentioned that this section is basically a section which is a code in itself, which talks about taxation of virtual digital asset. Okay. So the section is very simple. It says that any income arising from virtual digital asset would be taxable at straight 30%. So which means that if I earn say 10,000 rupees on a transaction of virtual digital asset and I have no other income, I will have to pay 30% of the 10,000 because it is straight taxable at 30%. There is no exemption available under 115 BBH as far as your basic exemption limit of 2,50,000 or rebate or all these things are concerned. So it is straight taxable at 30%. Okay. Second important thing, they say that you cannot claim any deduction in respect of any expenditure incurred in connection with digital asset, except for actual cost of acquisition, if any. Okay, which means that if I have incurred, suppose if I have appointed a consultant to help me, I have purchased a computer, I have an internet connection, I have taken an office to ensure that I will be able to do business in virtual digital asset, all those expenditure will be disallowed. Only expenditure to be allowed is the expenditure incurred for acquiring those assets, which means that if I'm mining cryptocurrencies, so the question mark remains that whether the expenditure incurred on mining would qualify as cost of acquisition, though it's a debatable issue. But in my view, apparently, looking at the way in which this section is structured, probably the department will take the stand that if you are incurring any expenditure which is not directly related to acquisition, it's a mining process. So there may be so many things involved. So we may not consider it as a cost of acquisition, but times to come, it will be decided. But one thing is definitely sure, any expenditure which is not intrinsically and directly related to acquisition of digital asset cannot be claimed as deduction, even though it is incurred wholly and exclusively for the purpose of digital asset. So this is the first very important restriction. Second restriction, no set off of loss from transfer of virtual digital asset computed under clause can be allowed, which means that if, now this is very interesting. Suppose if I have done 2 transactions during the year. In one transaction, I have earned 10 lakhs. In another transaction, I have lost 10 lakhs. Now the law says, the common sense says that I have done digital virtual asset ka transaction, 10 lakh kamaya, 10 lakh nuksan ho gaya, net is 0, there should not be income tax. Okay. But now this section will very categorically provide that if there is a loss on the same nature of transaction, on the same set of transaction, this loss cannot be claimed, which means in this example which I have taken, you have incurred loss of 10 lakhs. If you have incurred loss profit of 10 lakhs in 2 different transactions of digital virtual asset, one 10 lakhs which is lost would lapse. The another 10 lakhs should be subject to tax of 30%. Okay. Third, you cannot claim any set off, any deduction of your unabsorbed depreciation, of your bought forward losses. Nothing is allowed. Obviously, when the direct expenditure incurred is not allowed, so definitely the loss cannot be allowed. But there is specific provision which talks about disallowance of loss, unabsorbed depreciation, any deduction. Okay, and even loss from the very same transaction. Okay. So see how many restrictions are. In the first is they are saying that it is taxable at 30%. So no basic exemption means nothing, straight 30%. No 5%, 10%, 20%. Second, no deduction allowed for any expenditure incurred except for cost of acquisition. Third, no set off of any loss, any unabsorbed depreciation allowed. Fourth, no set off of the loss from virtual digital asset is also allowed. Now this is stretching the things, but they definitely don't want to promote, or they want to tax to the extent possible the transaction of virtual digital asset. Okay. And subsection 3 further provides that the transfer defined under clause 4 shall apply to virtual digital asset whether it is a capital asset or not. Okay. Now we will discuss the nuances of this. So the things we will see which are in red here, dark red, they are basically the amendments introduced by the finance bill. If you remember, I have mentioned that there were 38 amendments introduced subsequently on 23rd March to plug the loopholes. So these were the 3 amendments which were introduced, which I'll just take you through for you to understand as to how this has been this has become more stronger after this amendment. So earlier, if you see subsection 1, notwithstanding anything contained, this phrase was not available in the original proposal of Finance Bill 2022. Now, what is the implication of this? When it is mentioned that if this word is not available, I can always say that I am computing under this section, I am computing under section 28 or 45 or 56 or 56, sorry. And I will decide wherever I want to offer that income for tax, because there is no prohibition for me to go under any other heads of income. And as the law prevails, that the provision which are more beneficial to the SSE are applicable if there are no restrictions. So to bring in that restriction, they have now provided notwithstanding anything contained in any other provisions of the Act. So now what they are saying, that there is a non-obstant clause here which gives precedence to this section over all other section. So by mentioning this, now it is very clear you cannot take any argument saying that no, I want to compute it under business income or capital gain, etc., etc. Okay. So first thing. Second, you will see clause B, income computed under any provisions. Okay, clause B, subsection 2, clause B, second line. Now earlier, it was income computed under any other provisions. Okay. Now, if that would have been the case, then the loss earned or incurred on virtual digital asset cannot be set off against any other income. Okay. But now by removing any other provision, the word other, by removing the word other, now the meaning is it cannot be set off under any provisions of the Act. And any provision of the Act includes 115 BBH also. So they have expanded the scope of set off. Okay. From restriction of set off from other heads to this section also. So after this amendment has been made by removing the word other, now you cannot claim even the set off of loss from virtual digital asset against the income from virtual digital asset. Okay. And third amendment which has been made is subsection 3. You see whether capital asset or not, these words were missing. Whether capital asset or not, these words were missing. So how it read originally was, for the purpose of this section, the word transfer as defined in 47 of section 2 shall apply to any virtual digital asset. Now, whether capital asset or not is missing, what I can do, I can say that this transaction for me is a business transaction, and therefore section 115 BBH is not applicable, because BBH applies only to transfer as defined under 247, which is only in the case of capital gains. I hope you are able to link all this connection. So if this word would not have been there, I would have taken the stand very simply that I am doing the business activity, and because I'm doing business activity, there cannot be transfer as per section 247, and therefore this section doesn't apply to me at all. To do away this kind of argument also, they have proposed the amendment, and they have mentioned now whether capital asset or not. Now with these 3 words, whether capital asset or not, the implication now is that this transfer will be treated, or the definition of transfer has to be 247, whether it is a capital asset or whether it is a stock in trade, that is a business asset, or whether it is income from other sources. Irrespective of whatever it is, the definition of transfer will be used to analyze whether the transfer has happened as far as virtual digital asset is concerned, and that would trigger the provision of section 115 BBH. Okay. Now, one more amendment which they have introduced in finance bill is in clause A, subsection 2, clause A. If you see, I have highlighted if any word. Okay. So if you read earlier, this if any word was not available. So what was the implication? No deduction in respect of any expenditure other than cost of acquisition. Okay. Now if this word if any would not have been there, so kya interpretation hota tha? Suppose I would say that I have earned in some, I have just got this digital currency without doing anything. I don't know from where I got it. At one fine day, it was lying in my purse. Okay. So there is no cost of acquisition. Or I have done some mining while I was playing a video game. I earned some points while playing, and some credits were given to me of digital asset. Or NFTs you see, nothing. You are just roaming around and you just clicked a photograph. Uska NFT ban gaya. Uska paisa aa gaya. So there is no cost of acquisition. Now, as you know, the Supreme Court in the case of BC Srinivasan Sethi has held that if you cannot complete the computational mechanism, okay, then that machinery of computation of income would fail. In that case, the SSC took the view that goodwill is a self-generated asset and there is no cost of acquisition, and therefore there cannot be capital gains. Okay. So to do away with that interpretation, what they did is they have added one word, if any. So now you see no deduction in respect of any expenditure other than cost of acquisition, if any. If there is, you claim it. If there is no cost of acquisition, ignore it. So they have the department is learning from the old experiences, from various Supreme Court decisions, various interpretations being given by the courts and tribunals, and they have tried and made this section all the more strong by introducing various amendments to finance bill. So now mota what is that? If any of your clients say that अरे मेरा virtual digital asset का transaction हुआ है, so nothing to worry, you have to just report it. Report भी नहीं करना है, that would 99% would be reported in 26 AS also, because there's a TDS provision applicable here. Okay, you have to just say कितना पैसा कमाया, and he cannot say कि मेरे को net 2 लाख रुपए मिला है. You have to say that transaction wise detail दो मुझे. Okay, ignore all losses and add all the income. Now, of course, one may take a interpretation saying that no, सब net off करने के बाद जो आएगा वही हम लेंगे, and that's something which is, I would say, a gray area. But as of now, the current interpretation suggests that you have to only consider the income, and if there are any losses, you have to ignore those losses, which means you cannot go on a statement given by the client that during the year I have earned 50 lakhs rupees under digital currency. No, you have to go transaction wise, and it may happen that transaction wise profit component is 3 crore and loss component is 2.5 crore. So probably 3 crore would be fully taxable. Okay. So basically it is taxable at 30%, no deduction whatsoever of any expenditure, any loss, any depreciation, loss from other sources, or loss from this transaction itself cannot be claimed except for cost of acquisition, and that too if it is available. Irrespective of whether your income is taxable as business income, capital gain, other sources, this section would apply. Okay. One more section they have introduced for virtual digital asset to, of course, to collect the tax at source. But more importantly, it is to record the transaction and bring the transaction on record. Okay. And that's why the TDS rate, they have kept it very minimal. So who is the payer? Any person responsible for paying any resident any sum by way of consideration for transfer of virtual digital asset. If the recipient is a non-resident, then this provision is not applicable. Okay. What is the TDS rate? 1%. Is there any threshold exemption available? Yes. In a case of specified person, up to 50,000 per annum, which means that 50,000 तक का virtual digital asset आप purchase करो, TDS नहीं काटना है. Non-specified person, 10,000 per month. Who are specified person? It's the same specified person as you always have in 194 C and J. Individual HUF whose turnover doesn't exceed 1 crore, for business, 50 lakhs for profession in the preceding year. There is one more addition here, that it is possible that a person is not having any business activity. Okay, and he still is doing virtual digital asset transaction. So they have also included individual not having any income from business and profession is also a specified person, which means even a salaried employee is doing a transaction of virtual digital asset and is purchasing it up to 50,000, he is not liable to deduct tax at source. Okay. Incidence of tax, as we all know, payment or credit, which was earlier. If there's a payment in kind, yes. If there's a payment in kind, then before releasing the consideration, the TDS has to be paid. The law, the finance bill introduced this amendment. The finance bill introduced this amendment to provide, earlier it was only payer should deposit or deduct tax before releasing the consideration, was a provision. Now they have added the word and paid before releasing the consideration. Okay. So if there is a payment in kind, it can be ना कि एक digital asset लिया उसके सामने दूसरा digital asset दे दिया. Now on this all CoinX and all this platform, getting people have various currencies available. They buy one currency, sell one currency, and that transaction happens. It's not that always that this transaction happens in INR. Okay, it may happen kind of barter transaction also. So if it is in kind also, then how to value and what to value, that government or that CBDT will come out with some guidelines definitely in times to come. Okay. जब तक नहीं आता तब तक जो भी उसका market value is a value for which you have got the consideration. Now, since this TDS provision will impact anybody and everybody, whether it's a salaried employee, whether it's a retired person, or whether it's a housewife, anybody can be subject to this transaction. And therefore, they have done away with the requirement of 10 number, TDS return, and all these things. So they have come out with that procedural relief that 10 is not required. जैसे हमारा immovable property पे 1% होता है transaction. Same manner में challans वगैरह होगा, that is a payment come return would be there. No need to have a 10 number. One more important relief they have given is that nowadays, whenever you deduct tax at source, you have to check whether that person has filed the return of income for the earlier years in time. If they are not filed, then the TDS rates change from 5% to 10%, 15%, depending upon various clauses. So even that provision is not applicable because it will be concerning a layman or a person who is not having any business infrastructure, etc. So they have given this procedural relief so that you are not bothered to check whether he has filed a return or not, because that setup or infrastructure may not be available with everyone. So these are the procedural relief. It is possible because it has been happening on the electronic platform or on the online platform. So it may happen that section 194O, which is the e-commerce TDS on e-commerce transaction, and 194S both get triggered. It is possible. So even if that gets triggered, doesn't matter. The provision very categorically provides that whenever both the sections are applicable, 194S, that is TDS on virtual digital asset, would prevail over 194O. So whenever there is clash, no need to worry. Section very clearly provides that 194S will trigger. Now in this, there is an interesting thing which will happen here. It is possible that more than one TDS provision would apply. Kaise? Suppose your client, after he takes your services, okay, wants to pay the invoice. वो बोलते नहीं यार पैसा तो नहीं, अगर चाहिए तो मैं क्रिप्टो करेंसी में दूंगा. आप बोलते छोड़ो यार, भागते भूत की लंगोटी भली, जो मिले वो ले लेते हैं. Okay, you say चलो ठीक है यार, डिजिटल करेंसी तो डिजिटल करेंसी दे दो मुझे, मेरा फीस दे दो. So he transfers you some cryptocurrencies. Now see what will happen. The person is making the payment to you. So he is liable to deduct tax under 194J. Your client, he will deduct under 194J. Now he can't say that देखो इसके ये ट्रांजैक्शन पे एक बार टैक्स कट गया, आपने बोला था कि एक ही बार टैक्स कटेगा. नो, 190 एक ही पर्सन के ऊपर अगर एक से ज्यादा TDS क्लॉज एप्लीकेबल हो गए तो वी विल गो अंडर 194S. बाकी सेक्शन अप्लाई नहीं होंगे कहीं पर भी. बट यहाँ पर क्या है, दो अलग अलग सेक्शंस, दो अलग अलग लोगों को अप्लाई हो रहा है. पेयर एंड पेई बोथ आर रिसिपिएंट आल्सो ना. तो द पर्सन हु इज making the payment would deduct 194J and also 194S would trigger. Okay, because you are getting the consideration and you are paying that, so you are the payer now. Okay, so it is possible that 194O को उन्होंने ओवरराइड दे दिया, बट उसके अलावा कोई सेक्शन है तो एक टाइम पे दोनों सेक्शन ट्रिगर हो सकते हैं. एंड द बेस्ट एग्जांपल इज पेमेंट मेड टू any professionals or any contractor or interest का payment, because this can be a mode of settlement. So when there is a mode of settlement and that transaction originally attracts any TDS, so that plus 194S both would apply in respect of same transaction. Okay, so the whole idea of this is to capture the transactions so that they are reported and they are taxed appropriately, and there is minimum evasion as far as this taxation is concerned. And the government also had the entire data of what's happening, who is doing what transaction and how much transaction. Okay, so आपकी कोई भी queries हो गए ना, I would suggest that आप इसमें messages में डाल के रख लीजिए and एक साथ में हम सारी discuss करेंगे. So it will help us to continue the flow of the discussion. The second important thing which has been introduced, and an innovative thing I would say, which has been introduced in this budget, is section 139, subsection 8A, which is updated return. So now if you see, the return can be filed within 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, उसको 9 months कर दिया अभी, and you have done with it, and you cannot file return beyond that unless there is a 142 का notice, or unless there is 148 का notice or 148A का notice. Okay, you cannot file a return once it is your time has lapsed. And that time they have reduced substantially. Earlier it used to be 1 year from the end of the assessment year, so you used to get 12 months plus 12 months, 24 months of time to file the return, which they reduced to 12 months. Now they have reduced to 9 months. So they have been reducing the time, which is not sufficient in many cases, because there are so many transactions which may happen that you are not reported, or the details were not available, or you forgot to do it. So they have come out with this concept that since we have shrunk the time for you from 24 months to 9 months, now you are giving you opportunity for another 24 months. So they have come out with the concept of updated return. So you are eligible, any person, whether he has originally filed a return or not, can file an updated return. What is the duration available? Duration available is within 24 months from the end of relevant assessment years. Let's say 22-23 financial year की हम बात करते हैं, तो 23-24 is the assessment year. 24-25, 25-26. So 22-23, the updated return can be filed up to 31st March 2026. So 24-25, 25-26 is a 2-year period during which an update return can be filed. When this option is not available, so in 3 situations these options are not available. If your updated return is a loss return, suppose आपने कोई loss claim करना रह गया, आपका कोई broker का report properly आपके पास आया नहीं, and you file the return without considering that loss, then you realize करे ये तो report हमने include ही नहीं किया था, because many salaried employees or many investors don't maintain a regular books of accounts, or their books of accounts audit is quite likely, and they rely on the portfolio reports given by the brokers. तो कभी कोई पोर्टफोलियो रिपोर्ट में कोई स्टेटमेंट मिस हुआ या कोई रीजन से लॉस क्लेम नहीं किया, एंड आपका वो टाइम चला गया है रिवाइज रिटर्न फाइल करने का, यू कैन नॉट फाइल एन अपडेटेड रिटर्न व्हिच इज अ लॉस रिटर्न. ओके. सेकंड, you cannot file an updated return which has the impact or effect of decreasing the total tax liability. तो आप बोलोगे सर फिर क्यों करेंगे? ऑफ कोर्स पेनल्टी से बचने के लिए करोगे, प्रोसिक्यूशन से बचने के लिए करोगे, फ्यूचर इंटरेस्ट कॉस्ट से बचने के लिए करोगे. देयर आर सो मेनी थिंग्स व्हिच हेल्प्स, बट डेफिनेटली if you find out that there is a mistake and I have paid more tax, you cannot file an updated return. And similarly, if the updated return results in refund or increase in refund, आप बोलोगे सर इनकम चेंज नहीं होगा तो रिफंड कैसे चेंज हो सकता है? हो सकता है. टीडीएस आपने क्लेम कर दिया as per 26 years, 12 महीने बाद आपके उसमें और भी एंट्रीज आ गई जो आपने ओरिजिनली क्लेम नहीं की थी. नाउ यू वांट टू क्लेम दैट, you are not allowed to do it. या कोई आपका टैक्स क्लेम करना रह गया था या whatever it is, okay, you cannot claim the excess TDS credits under the updated return. So you cannot have a loss return in updated return, you cannot have a return which will decrease your total tax liability, and you cannot claim refund or increase in the refund claim in your updated return. So ये कैटेगरी है. दूसरा कैटेगरी इन्होंने डाल दिया कि they don't want this option to be given to people who they think are involved in black money or tax evasion, etc., etc. So इन्होंने क्या कर दिया, इन्होंने वो कैटेगरी ऑफ लोग जो normally tax evasion या department has the view that these people are not tax compliant or are engaged in the tax evasion practices, black money, etc., etc. Normally they are searched, or their accounts are, or the assets are requisitioned, or they are sent a requisition, or they are surveyed. These are the basic way of for the department to actually track and tackle the people who are not compliant as far as the taxation is concerned. But they have said that the people who have been searched or on whom the requisition has been made under 132A. Requisition normally is 132 में किसके यहाँ पर सर्च किया, उसके यहाँ पर कोई incriminating evidence मिल गया जो किसी थर्ड पार्टी के बारे में बता रहा है, तो उसको रिक्विजिशन देते हैं कि आपका ये सब लेके आओ. या सर्वे कंडक्ट हुआ है, ओके, या नोटिस इशू किया है फॉर सीजर ऑफ बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट, अगेन सेम रिक्विजिशन काइंड ऑफ थिंग ही है, but it's only for seizure of books of account because they have doubts whether you are maintaining or books are not properly maintained or are purged, etc. However, they have excluded TDS survey from the survey, because the TDS department also does the survey, but the whole concept of TDS survey is to train the SSE concerning the TDS provision. That's a mindset in the TDS survey, and therefore they have excluded TDS survey. To the person on whom there is a search, there is a requisition, there is a survey other than TDS survey, or to whom notice has been issued for seizure of books of accounts under this section, they are not eligible. Not only for the year in which the survey search is conducted, but for any assessment year preceding such assessment year. Future में कर सकते हैं. They are not barred for life. I hope you're getting the point. They are not barred for life. They are barred for that year and any of the earlier year. Obviously, because क्या अगर मुझे पता चला कि मेरे यहाँ पर सर्च हुआ और मेरे यहाँ पर कुछ अनअकाउंटेड इनकम मिल गई है, and I have option to file updated return for last 2-3 years. I will go into that year, I will file the return, pay extra tax. Getting, because the penalties are like 60%, 90%, tax rates are 75%, prosecution. There are so many complications and issues involved if the income is not reported in your return and detected by the department. So basically, in order to ensure that such people don't get the option of updated return, they have provided this categorically, that this category of people are ineligible for the assessment year or for the previous year, that is in the year in which the search is conducted or survey is conducted, requisition is made, and all the years preceding to those years. Okay, so they will not be eligible to do. So if you see, again here for any assessment year को highlight किया. Earlier this word was not there. Earlier the word was for 2 preceding years. Okay, आप बोलोगे सर वो तो मैच ही हो रहा है, but वो 1 साल का फर्क पड़ता है 2 preceding year and उसमें. तो what they did is they said that 2 or 3 कुछ नहीं, हमको उनको allow ही नहीं कर रहा है. So they just removed the word 2 preceding years and used the word any assessment year, so that these people would never be eligible to file updated return, okay, for the earlier years. Subsequent year, definitely yes, there is no restriction on them. कि एक बार आपके यहाँ पर अगर एक बार आपके यहाँ पर सर्च हो गया तो इसका ये मतलब नहीं कि फ्यूचर में आप कभी अपडेटेड रिटर्न फाइल नहीं कर पाओगे. You can always file updated return, but not for the year of search and any of the earlier years. Now there is a restriction for the respective assessment year. तो ये जो हमने देखा था वो respective assessment year and all the earlier years, so वो ineligible person में आ गए. अभी मैं कह रहा हूँ ineligible assessment year. Which are the ineligible assessment year? किस cases में वो particular assessment year के लिए updated return आप file नहीं कर सकते हो? A, the person who has already filed an updated return, which means that you have this option of filing updated return only once for the because revised return आप 10 बार कर सकते हो. आज revise करो, कल करो, every day you want to revise, you revise it. There is no bar in law. Okay, आप 50 बार revise करो, कोई problem नहीं है. But updated return you can do it only once. Once you revise the file an updated return, then in future you are not eligible to again file. Okay. Second, where assessment and reassessment proceedings are pending. So suppose मेरा assessment शुरू हो गया है 21-22 का. Okay. Assessing office ने कोई particular question पूछ लिया. Now I know that ये question पूछ लिया यार, इसमें तो बड़ा addition हो जाएगा. Which I knew that I have taken a chance. Now I don't want to take that chance. मैं जाके return revise कर देता हूँ. So I will pay the tax. I will avoid penalties. I will avoid all other complications. So they will say that no, once for a particular year the assessment or reassessment is ongoing, those assessment years are barred from filing an updated return. So you need to be very careful when you are filing an updated return for your client. Please ensure that there is no notice issued under 143(2) or 148A getting on you for this particular assessment year. तो वो आपको चेक करके उसके बाद ही डिसाइड करना है, फाइल करना है. आई एम श्योर द डिपार्टमेंट विल हैव दैट सॉफ्टवेयर फंक्शनिंग और मॉडलिटी वेयरइन इफ द नोटिस इज इशूड दैट अपडेटेड रिटर्न विल बी ब्लॉक्ड. आई एम श्योर, बट जब तक वो नहीं आता है, यू नीड टू बी केयरफुल. थर्ड, AO has an information under specified law from foreign government. Nowadays, because of this exchange of information under the double taxation avoidance agreement, these governments are continuously getting this Pandora box, Panama details, details. There are so many details which are regularly coming officially to Government of India. Government of India is sharing details to respective governments. Okay. अगर वैसा कोई particular assessment year के लिए किसी SSC के लिए डिटेल आया हुआ है, तो वो assessment year के लिए आप रिवाइज रिटर्न या एलिजिबल रिटर्न फाइल नहीं करते. आप बोलो सर हमको कैसे पता चलेगा? वो probably आपको पता नहीं चलेगा. But when you file an updated return and when the proceeding starts based on the information received, the department will say, "Yeah, updated return we are ignoring. This updated return we are ignoring because we already had an information at the time when updated return was filed by you." Okay. Cases where prosecution has been launched. तो कोई केस में अगर prosecution launch किया तो you cannot go and revise the return and offer that income and say that देखो अभी तो tax भर दिया, regularize कर दिया है. No. And such person or class of person as notified by the court. So they may say that people who are accused of smuggling, the people who are accused of ransom, corruption, whatever, they can come out with any list and say that वो सब assessment year है, जो year में ये action हुआ, will not allow you to file the updated return. But that is the scope which they have retained with them. Okay. So if there is a loss return, original loss return, so they have, तो वो थोड़ा confusion था कि पहले loss return होगा तो वो updated return में file हो सकता है नहीं हो सकता है. Suppose if I have a loss return, can I file updated return, not updated return? So they came out with an amendment saying that you can file, if the original return file is loss return, you can file an updated return, provided two conditions. Condition number one, that the original return is filed under section 139(1), that is within due date, A. And B, such updated return should not be a loss return. यानी अगर आपका 10 लाख का लॉस है, अपडेटेड रिटर्न 2 लाख के लॉस वाला है, दैट इज नॉट एलिजिबल. 10 लाख का लॉस वाला है, 10,000 का प्रॉफिट वाला रिटर्न है, इनकम वाला रिटर्न है, यस दैट वुड क्वालिफाई. So it should not be a loss return. And secondly, most important is the original return should be filed in time. अगर original return ही आपने time में file नहीं किया, then you lose the opportunity of filing the updated return. And this is one of the things which you can mention in your circular to your clients when you are sending a circular intimating them about the due dates. Okay, what are the consequences of if the return is not filed within time? So we normally give so that the client should not say in future कि अरे हमको पहले बोला होता ये consequences है तो हम return file कर देते थे, हमको लगा कुछ नहीं है चल जाएगा. तो नॉर्मली वी हैव प्रैक्टिस ऑफ राइटिंग के लॉस अलाउ नहीं होगा, ये नहीं होगा. तो इसमें ये एक और ऑप्शन ये भी डालना चाहिए कि अपडेटेड रिटर्न ऑप्शन और फैसिलिटी वुड नॉट बी अवेलेबल इफ द रिटर्न इज नॉट फाइल्ड विद इन टाइम. ओके, नाउ इट इज पॉसिबल दैट यू रिवाइज द क्लेम इन ईयर 1, ओके, एंड दैट हैव सम इंपैक्ट इन सब्सिक्वेंट ईयर्स. सो आपका लॉस रिड्यूस हो जाएगा कि सेट ऑफ क्लेम किया है या लॉस डिसअलाउ कर दिया कोई ईयर में जाके आपने. इट इज पॉसिबल ना कि आपने अपडेटेड रिटर्न फाइल किया और कोई पर्टिकुलर लॉस था जो एलिजिबल नहीं था, आपने क्लेम कर दिया था. नाउ यू वांट टू रिवाइज दैट लॉस एंड नॉट क्लेम दैट लॉस और डिसअलाउ सम एक्सपेंडिचर, जिससे आपका अनअब्जॉर्ब्ड डेप्रिसिएशन या अनअब्जॉर्ब्ड लॉस कम हो जाता है या मैट क्रेडिट चेंज हो जाता है. तो मोमेंट दैट हैपेंस तो उसका जो कॉन्सिक्वेंशियल इंपैक्ट होगा बिकॉज सब्सिक्वेंट ईयर में आपने कैरी ओवर किया होगा. तो इट इज मैंडेटरी फॉर यू फॉर द एसएससी टू रिवाइज ऑल दोज रिटर्न्स which are impacted on account of first updated return. I hope you're getting the point. So if I revise the return for 22-23, update the return for 22-23, okay, जिसमें मैंने कुछ डिसअलाउंसेस कर दी, जिससे मेरा लॉस जो 10 लाख का था वो 2 लाख हो गया, तो मेरा तो रिटर्न आगे वाला ईयर का फाइल हो गया होगा बिकॉज एट सम पॉइंट इन टाइम इन फ्यूचर आई एम रिवाइजिंग इट. तो वो पॉइंट इन टाइम पे अगर मेरे दूसरे रिटर्न फाइल हो चुके हैं, अप टू 2 रिटर्न प्रोबेबली वुड बी फाइल्ड बिकॉज 24 मंथ्स का टाइम है, तो वो दोनों रिटर्न मुझे रिवाइज करके करेक्ट पोजीशन पे लेके आके फिर फाइल करने होंगे. ओके, ना आप बोलोगे सर ये अपडेटेड रिटर्न अगर हम कर देंगे तो फ्यूचर वापस अपडेट करना होगा तो क्या होगा. नाउ दिस इज समथिंग व्हिच आई हैव नो आंसर एज ऑफ नाउ. आई वुड से दैट आई हैव नॉट रिवाइज्ड वॉलंटरली, आई हैव रिवाइज्ड बिकॉज ऑफ द स्टैट्यूटरी प्रोविजन एंड देयरफॉर माय ऑप्शन ऑफ वन रिवीजन ऑफ अपडेटेड रिटर्न और वन अपडेटेड रिटर्न इज नॉट एग्जॉस्टेड. दैट इज द स्टैंड आई वुड टेक. बट यस, देयर इज लिटिल a gray area that which says that you can only file one revised updated return. What happens if I file a consequential updated return? That we'll see. But definitely we can take that argument that voluntarily मैंने एक भी नहीं किया, ये तो आप consequential updated return था and therefore I retain the right to file one updated return. तो आपने कहा कि सर ये तो अच्छी बात है, चलो whatever it is, नहीं फाइल करने से तो बेटर है कि कुछ तो फाइल करने का मौका मिल रहा है. तो ये गवर्नमेंट इतनी मेहरबान कैसे हो गई कि हमको अलाउ कर दिया ऐसे ही, दो विद द कंडीशंस. There are no free lunches. So they said, okay, there are charges for everything. We are giving you this facility. You have to pay extra for this facility. What is the facility? So you are getting 2 additional years to file your returns. So they are saying you will have to pay. And what you are going to save? You are going to save penalties. You are going to save prosecution. You are going to save so much litigation, etc., etc. So उसका कुछ cost दे दो हमको, free में क्यों दे हम आपको chance. So they have said that year 1 में अगर आप realize करते हो updated return file करना है तो जो भी आपका aggregate tax payable आ रहा है 25% आपको एडिशनल टैक्स देना पड़ेगा. टैक्स एंड इंटरेस्ट जो भी आता है आपका, समझो 1 लाख रुपए एक्स्ट्रा आ रहा है, 25,000 और जोड़ दो, 1,25,000 रुपया हमको दे दो. ओके, ईयर 1 में अगर आपका नहीं होता, ईयर 2 में आपको ध्यान में आता है तो ठीक है, यू हैव डिलेड इट, तो यू शुड पे कॉस्ट फॉर इट. सो व्हाट इज द कॉस्ट? कॉस्ट इज सिंपल, 50%. ओके, तो ईयर 2 में अगर आप अपडेटेड रिटर्न फाइल करते हैं तो आपका जो भी एग्रीगेट टैक्स एंड इंटरेस्ट पेबल है 2 लाख रुपए आता है, 2 लाख में 1 लाख और जोड़ दो एंड फाइल करो. तो आप बोलोगे सर उससे अच्छा तो पेनल्टी भर देंगे हम. दैट इज द चॉइस यू हैव, दैट इज द चॉइस यू हैव. बट नेवरदलेस दे हैव सेड दैट 25% एंड 50%. सो दिस इज बेसिकली द प्रोविजन कंसर्निंग द अपडेटेड रिटर्न एंड द कॉन्सिक्वेंशियल टैक्स पेबल. द टैक्स लायबिलिटी or tax of 25% additional tax and 50% additional tax has been provided under section 140B. अगर आप 139(8)A में जाके ढूंढोगे तो कहीं मिलेगा नहीं 25% 50%. That has been provided under section 140B, capital B. Okay. tax rates just they have brought in parity. Cooperative societies were not in parity with the counterparts, उनको थोड़ा reduction भी दे दिया है. So 12% का 7% कर दिया है, 1 करोड़ से 10 करोड़, and above 10 करोड़ 12%. तो earlier it was 12% throughout, 1 करोड़ के ऊपर. So वो 7% कर दिया है minimum alternate tax. Alternate minimum tax 18.5 and 15% कर दिया है. This is important. Dividend, short-term capital gain 111A, long-term capital gain 112A. If you remember earlier, till last year, the maximum surcharge was capped at 15%. अगर आपका ये income, dividend income, short-term capital gain के वजह से आपका 3 करोड़ 5 करोड़ के ऊपर जाता है तो आपको 37%, 25% का surcharge नहीं लगेगा. वो income के ऊपर maximum 15% का surcharge लगेगा. तो कैपिंग दोनों के लिए था, अभी भी है, पहले भी था. बट लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन जो रेगुलर है, प्रॉपर्टी पे है, अनलिस्टेड शेयर्स पे है, गेटिंग लैंड पे है, कोई भी कैपिटल गेन आपका जो था अदर देन 112A एंड 111A, उसके ऊपर, सॉरी 112A वाला, उसके ऊपर अर्लियर नॉर्मल रेट्स वर एप्लीकेबल. तो अगर आपका अनलिस्टेड कंपनी का शेयर से प्रॉफिट हो गया एंड आपका टोटल इनकम इज अबव 5 करोड़, so you will pay 37% surcharge. Now this year with effect from assessment year 23-24, that is 22-23 financial year में जो भी transaction होगा, long term capital gain other than 112A, that is other than listed securities, the surcharge has been capped at 15%. So that's a big relief. That's a big relief for especially for the investors. Okay. Section 115 BBD was a concessional tax on dividend from foreign company. तो पहले अगर foreign company से आपको कोई dividend आता है तो एक 15% का आपको concessional tax regime दिया था कि 15% भरो, खत्म करो. वो सेक्शन उन्होंने भी abolish कर दिया, which means your dividend income will be treated as a regular dividend income. वो सब ऐड हो जाएगा उसमें. ऐड होने के बाद उसका जो भी टोटल होगा 5%, 10%, 20, 30, because the maximum rate goes up to 42.7% with surcharge and education cess. So whatever is the applicable rate, वो applicable rate आपको लगेगी. That concessional tax regime has been abolished. So these are the tax rates applicable, revised tax rate. Now this is a short chart I have prepared, wherein the amendments have been made with retrospective effects. And now normally you will see this government has abstained largely from making any amendments which are retrospective in nature, generally. Okay. So not unlike the earlier ones where the Supreme Court has given one decision in Vodafone, they amended the law from 1962, given another decision, they amended the law from 2001. So rather than they have not amended the law as such, okay, but they have come out with a new scheme of introducing an explanation every time. And when they introduce an explanation, what happens is this explanation are clarificatory in nature, and there are interpretations which says that they are applicable because they say that it was always been the intention, it should always be treated as so and so. The way in which the explanation is worded, it is always retrospective from the date when this section was originally introduced. Okay, so some of the important sections I have just noted, and we'll discuss point by point. So 14A, there are two amendments. They have introduced one non-obstant clause, notwithstanding anything contained, and for the purpose of computing, and which has been effect from 22. Normally, it will be applicable for SS financial year 21-22 onwards. So that is only to give more strength to this section. So that same argument should not be made that 14A is not having a non-obstant clause, and therefore any other section may also overrule or override 14A. So they have said that no, 14A, once it is invoked, it will override all other sections. This explanation one is something which is very important amendment. So they have introduced this explanation. Excuse me for the spelling of explanation. Typing error ho gaya. Anyways, so as you are aware that the Supreme Court has given decision saying that if a particular investment has not earned or generated any exempt income, okay, then such investment should not be considered for the purpose of computing disallowances for the section 14A read with rule 80. Okay. So what people used to do is that I have 10 crore का investment, वो 10 crore में से मुझे कोई भी interesting dividend income नहीं आया पूरे साल भर में. Okay. And therefore, this 10 crore should be excluded from computing disallowance under rule 80. And that was a decision. Now, in a way, that decision was right also and not correct also in a way that it's not necessary that you should receive income every year, because if you're not receiving dividend income, that income is getting accumulated to your company's reserve, at some point in time you may get bonus or you may get more dividend. If you're not getting dividend for 5 years, it is possible that in 6th year you may get 80% dividend. Okay, but the company has earned the money, and they wanted, and this was creating an abrupt interpretation. So they introduced an explanation very smartly, and they said that irrespective of the fact whether the exempt income has been earned during the year or not, the provision of Section 14A would apply. So by doing that, what they have done is they have overruled the Supreme Court decision. They will say, yeah, we have not amended the law. They have not amended the law, but in a way they have amended the law by introducing explanation to Section 14A. And because it is a clarificatory in nature, this would be applicable from 1/4/1962, because Section 14A originally was introduced with retrospective effect from 1962. So that is how it would work now. So this explanation has overruled that Supreme Court decision. So going forward, this argument that I don't have any exempt income, अगर आपका tribunal में ये matter pending है, department ने appeal file किया है, high court में pending है, Supreme Court में pending है, all this will be resolved against you in view of this amendment. Section 17(2) is COVID treatment provided by the employer, because जब employer ने employee को treatment provide किया था, तो under the current provision of perquisites, these perquisite treatments were not covered under the exemption. And definitely this cannot be taxed because it was a catastrophe for everybody. And wherever the employees has helped the employer को तो पैसा नहीं मिला है, सब कुछ डॉक्टर में चला गया, उसके बाद अगर उसको बोलो आप 30% या 40% टैक्स भरो उसका, that would not be right. So they came out with the amendment with retrospective effect. It's a good amendment, 1/4/2020 onwards, because March 20 में भी start हो गया था, February 20 में भी हो गया था, तो they have covered 1920 financial year also. 21st April 20 is basically assessment year 2021. So they said this is not a perquisite. It is possible that the employer has not given the money, but somebody else has given the money, because everybody has helped everybody in the COVID times. So they have said that okay, even अगर आपका COVID treatment का reimbursement हुआ है, तो जितना exact reimbursement हुआ है उतना prove करो, that money would not be chargeable, because 56(2), if you remember, talks about gifts, the money received without any consideration, or gifts received without any consideration, or from gift received from non-related party. अगर relatives है तो कोई issue ही नहीं है, but non-relatives ने अगर आपका कोई help किया है, किसी ने आपको पैसा दिया है treatment के लिए, government ने पैसा दिया है, तो all those income would not be treated as your income, or receipt would not be treated as your income. Okay, if you have actually spent those money, अगर उसमें से कोई पैसा बच गया और आपने रख लिया है, then that is an income if it is more than 50,000. And they have given some prescribed conditions also, 10 लाख से ऊपर नहीं होना चाहिए वगैरह वगैरह. I'm not, for the sake of brevity, I'm not expanding all those discussion. And it is possible that there is an unfortunate event because of the COVID, a person died and his family members have received compensation from government or from the society or from some minister or some politician, etc., etc. So even those compensation would be exempt from tax, provided some conditions are satisfied, which is within 12 months and all this stuff. They have given the conditions so that the people should not misuse this provision to launder money. Okay, so they have given the conditions. It's a small provision, but it's a retrospective effect, which is basically COVID relief provisions. Next is this explanation 3 introduced to section 37(1). The 37(1) explanation, we all are aware that there is one explanation 1, which was introduced with retrospective effect from 1962. What it provided was that whenever any expenditure is incurred for a purpose which is an offense prohibited by law, such expenditure would not qualify for deduction. ये आने का reason क्या था? That earlier, when this department used to seize gold from smugglers or seize some assets from some assets who is doing that illegal business, customs वाले या whatever, customs से सबको asset seize कर दिया because it was not duty paid and other things, या smuggle किया हुआ था, तो income tax department assessment करता था कि unaccounted gold है आपका, तो इसमें से ठीक है ये assessment हो गया, gold हो गया, ये gold मेरा custom ने ले लिया अभी, तो चला गया, तो मेरे को ये loss allow करो आप, and therefore there is no income under income tax. And the court said well that yes, because ultimately he is doing the business, whether it's a legal business or illegal business, income tax is applicable. Income tax doesn't say that no illegal business का income के ऊपर हम tax नहीं लगाएंगे, उसके ऊपर और ज्यादा लगता है tax. So the court said that since the gold has been seized by the government authorities, so that's a loss, business loss, you should allow them. So to overdo that, they came out with an explanation. Okay, any offense, any expenditure which is in the nature of offense, which is prohibited on account of an offense which is prohibited by law, should not be eligible for deduction. And they introduced that from 1/4/1962. तो जहां पर भी जो केसेस पेंडिंग थे, ये सारे जो आर्ग्यूमेंट्स हैं वो चले जाएंगे, बिकॉज गवर्नमेंट ने क्यों सीज किया वो पूछेगा, बिकॉज इट वाज स्मगल्ड, it was unreported, underreported, and therefore it was in contravention of any law for time being in force. Okay, and because it was in contravention, जैसे penalty हम भरते हैं, service tax, GST, VAT, excise. So, and this is one of the why it is very important now is because this is one of the reporting item under clause under form 3CD. There's a specific item. This question is specifically asked in form 3CD, and therefore for us it is very important to know because we deal with this almost in all the clients cases, and then we see कि चलो GST का क्या डिमांड आया, कितना आपने पेमेंट किया, इसका पेमेंट का ब्रेकअप दो, गेटिंग PF में आपने कोई पेमेंट किया क्या, ओवर एंड अबव द चलन, अगर किया तो उसका ऑर्डर दिखाओ हमको. There are so many laws which are applicable to a businessman doing business in India, and so many provisions are there. काफी बार कुछ कंप्लाई नहीं होता है तो पेनल्टीज लग जाती है, इंटरेस्ट लग जाता है, कंपाउंडिंग हो जाती है. So this provision was there, retrospective effect was introduced somewhere in 2000, I believe 4, 5 or 6. Okay. Now what happened subsequently, this department started getting after this pharmaceutical companies. This pharmaceutical companies, what they do is they incur huge expenditure on various gift items given to doctors, various tours, travels in the name of seminar given to the doctors, various books, and so many things, and they give almost anything and everything which is to be given or which the doctor demands. Okay, and they used to claim this as an expenditure. The department started taking the view that no, this paying doctors for prescribing your medicine is prohibited under the law, and therefore this expenditure wherein you are incurring this expenditure to instigate or to motivate the doctors to recommend your medicines is an offense which is prohibited by law, and therefore this will be disallowed. So the department started disallowing this expenditure right, left, and center. All pharmaceutical companies used to see business promotion, उसका breakup लेके आओ, जो भी तुमने seminars, ये cruise, इसके ऊपर उसके ऊपर जो भी खर्चे किए हैं, सब disallow हो जाएंगे. Then the SSC started arguing that ठीक है, offense prohibited by law, किसका offense होना चाहिए? If I am incurring the expenditure, it should be an offense for me. So what is the which law, under which law this is prohibited? So they said it is prohibited under the Code of Conduct of Indian Medical Association. So say very good. If it is prohibited under the Code of Conduct of Indian Medical Association, on whom those Code of Conduct apply? Yeah, applies to doctor. The pharmaceutical company said whether it applies to us. So you see preamble, all this, and everything you see, it is applicable only to the members of IMA. They say our Code of Conduct applies only to chartered accountant. No? It doesn't apply to outsider. So they said that this Code of Conduct is not applicable to us, and therefore there is no offense which we have engaged into or committed. Since this Code of Conduct is not applicable to a pharma company, when we make a payment, उनको लेने का offense हो सकता है, वो आप देख लो, but हमको देने का कोई offense नहीं, because there is no bar on us to do it. The court said yes, this argument is perfectly all right, and the court started allowing this as a deduction. Bombay Mumbai Tribunal and so many courts have started relying on this kind of interpretation, and they started giving the relief. Now to overcome that, they said that ये सब अभी झगड़ा करने से कोई मतलब नहीं है. They introduced an explanation. So section 37(1) explanation 1 only mention offense prohibited by law. They introduced explanation 3, explaining what are the offenses prohibited by law. What are the offenses prohibited by the law? Now इसमें एक और interpretation लोगों ने किया कि कहीं पर क्या होता था कि I have a business interest in say US, और US में कोई offense commit हो गया और वहां पर मैंने कोई 50 लाख रुपए का penalty pay कर दिया, suppose. Okay, I used to argue that offense prohibited by law, what law applicable in India, and therefore that law is not in India, it's outside India, and that law is not applicable here, and therefore that payment should be eligible for deduction. And the courts have said yes, when you are talking of law, so it's law of land. Okay, या काफी बार compounding होता था, you must have heard income tax में होता है, RBI में काफी बार होता है, all act, companies act में होते हैं compounding, that when you commit any offense, okay, you can come forward say that चलो जो हो गया वो गलती हो गया हमारा, we are willing to compound. तो कुछ compoundable होता है, कुछ compoundable नहीं होता है. तो compoundable offense में जैसे okay, आपका 10 लाख रुपए compounding fee है, I pay 10 lakh rupees compounding fee, all the offenses are nullified. So that compounding fee I used to claim as deduction. Now there was a gray area whether it's for offense committed or it is in charges or fee paid to ensure that I don't face any difficulty. So again, there were controversial decisions. So what they did is they introduced explanation 3. Okay, they introduced explanation 3, and they mentioned that prohibited offenses would, or prohibited offense prohibited by law would include following things. A, any offense, any activity or any offense which is an offense under any law in India or outside India. तो पहला उन्होंने कर दिया. दूसरा उन्होंने बोला कि compounding fee paid for any offense committed in India or outside India. तो इसको भी कवर कर लिया. थर्ड उन्होंने बोला कि if you make any payment to any person, whether carrying on business profession or not carrying on any business profession, and if there are any law provision applicable to the recipient of person, and it is an offense under those law, then also this payment would be covered under offense prohibited by law. So what they have essentially done is जो arguments किए थे वो arguments को nullify करने के लिए law ही amend कर दिया उन्होंने. So when you can't win the game, change the rules. Okay. So, and of course, Supreme Court has recently also given one decision saying that no, pharmaceutical companies, when they are giving gifts to these doctors, this is immoral. And they have gone into some different arguments, and they say that no, this should be disallowed. So ये नहीं भी किया होता तो चलता था, but nevertheless they did not only this, but two more amendments they have introduced. Okay, and this now is not only applicable to pharma companies; it may apply to chartered accountants, architects, lawyers, because everybody is governed by code of conduct applicable to them, and those code of conduct are not applicable to the other party. Okay, so if he is making the payment to a chartered accountant, to a lawyer, which is basically prohibited, so that payment would also not qualify. For example, suppose अगर कोई architect, आपने कोई client architect को दिया, architect ने आपको कोई referral fee दिया, as a referral fee, which is, let's say, prohibited under code of conduct. So not only, of course, it's an income, no doubt. You can't say that ये code of conduct में prohibited तो मेरा income के time पे तो चलता है. Offense हुआ, illegal income है तो चलेगा, but illegal expenditure हमको allow नहीं करना. That's the concept. If you have an illegal income, it is taxable. It's apply only to section 37, which talks of expenditure. So illegal expenditure is disallowed. Illegal income is taxable. So in this case, suppose a chartered accountant receives some referral fee or some commission, whatever, okay, from another professional for referring the clients. So this income is legal, but it is taxable. That payment is not legal. Not legal from the recipient perspective, not from the payer perspective, unless their code of conduct also prohibits it. So let's assume they are not prohibiting, or he's not a professional architect, he's only doing some consultation work and not applicable, code of conduct is not applicable. So even that expenditure cannot be claimed. So what I meant to say, Supreme Court applies only in respect of, say, pharmaceutical company, but now this would apply to many other things which will come up as and when the things will be reported. Okay. So there may be many other ways in which these provisions would apply, but what they have essentially done is they have enlarged the scope of offense prohibited by law, or they have given the clarification. They are saying that it is nothing but a clarification for what is offense, what do you mean by offense prohibited by law? And therefore, because it is an explanation which is clarificatory in nature, this would apply from 1/4/1962, which means all those pharmaceutical company cases which are pending wherever they are. Supreme Court तो आ ही गया है, नहीं भी आया है, तो भी this would be fully disallowed in view of this explanation. Next is the retrospective amendment of 40A clause 2. Bombay High Court, Sessa Goa. And SSC argued before the court that this education cess is not in the nature of any tax or income tax, and therefore this education cess paid in connection with income from business should be allowed as deduction. So matter was argued. The court said that yes, 48(2) talks about any tax paid on income earned by the SSC, business income earned by the SSC will be disallowed in computing income from business. 40A, if you remember, 40A(1)(a), TDS काटा नहीं तो disallow होगा, 40A(1) outside India payment किया होगा तो disallow होगा, फिर wealth tax है, and so many expenditure which are prohibited or specifically disallowed. Okay, so 40A clause 2 provides that any tax paid on income from business would be disallowed in computing income from business. And because of this section, income tax का deduction नहीं लेते. अगर ये section नहीं होता, अगर ये section statute में नहीं होता, तो we could have taken deduction for income tax also. अल्टीमेटली मैंने बिजनेस इनकम अर्न किया तो उसका कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस में टैक्स पे किया है, तो सेक्शन 37 का सब कंडीशन फुलफिल होता है for the purpose of business, because if I don't pay the tax, I will not be able to do business. I can extend that argument. So under 37, normally it is allowable. But because of the specific prohibition under this clause, income tax deduction is not claimed. So an SSC argued before the court that income tax जो लिखा है उसमें cess is not tax, because cess, if you see, if it is an education cess, it will go to that particular education cess fund. और उधर सिर्फ वही ऑब्जेक्ट के लिए खर्च होगा. It will not go to the consolidated fund of India जो normally tax जाता है. Okay, तो वो आर्ग्यूमेंट लेके हैं, they argued and the court said that yes, tax के अंदर cess included नहीं है. So what happened is everybody started making a claim for education cess. Surcharge का तो कोई claim नहीं करा था because surcharge is directly linked and tax से related है, consolidated fund में जाता है वगैरह. But nevertheless, cess everybody started claiming the deduction. Okay, अगर original return में नहीं किया और appeal में pending है तो appeal में we used to take an additional ground, and because it's a legal ground, it is admissible. And the court is to allow. So everybody started claiming it while filing the return also after this decision, cess was claimed as deduction. Now the government said that we never wanted to give you any deduction. We never wanted to give you any deduction for the cess. And therefore what they did, again, rather than amending the law, they introduced an explanation explaining what is tax. You see, they are committing to their commitment. They are sticking to their commitment that will not amend the law retrospectively. They are not amending the law. They are saying that this was always the intention. This was always the intention, and therefore, we are just giving the clarification. So they say that tax will include cess and surcharge. So the moment that explanation is given, so it's a clarificatory in nature. Abhi cess and surcharge जो भी applicable है, I have just taken cess का date, that is 1/4/2006. Surcharge also I think वही time पे कभी introduce हुआ होगा, तो जो भी date होगा, it becomes effective from that technically. Okay, so it is also a retrospective amendment. Abhi issue ये हो गया कि there are so many people who had claimed this in the written based on the interpretation given by the court and the tribunals, etc., etc. अभी इतना सब returns में already चला गया है और ये तो retrospective impact है इसका, तो tax consequence भी आएगा इसका, तो how to deal with that? Now this is very important, ना? इसको थोड़ा ध्यान से सुनना आप लोग. So they have introduced an amendment under section 155. Subsection 18 has been introduced. So what this subsection 18 says, it says that if any SSC has claimed deduction for cess and surcharge, okay, it will be deemed to be under-reporting of income. Now I will just take you what is under-reporting and misreporting. I'm sure all of you are aware, but just to connect it. So the penalty provisions have been changed, okay, from 271C to 270A from assessment year 17-18. आप बोलोगे सर उसके पहले का होगा तो अंडर रिपोर्टिंग में नहीं बैठेगा वो, तो to that extent there is a loophole in this 55-18. But nevertheless, so there are two category of penalties now. Penalty for under reporting, which is 50% of the tax liability is a penalty, and penalty for misreporting, which is 200% of tax sought to be evaded. Okay, so this 155-18 provides that if there is any claim made by the SSC in respect of cess or surcharge, it would be treated as under reporting of income. Now under reporting of income is उसके ऊपर तो टैक्स तो लगेगा प्लस 50% उसका पेनल्टी भी लगेगा. आप बोलोगे सर ये तो अन्याय है. क्यों? Because what we did is we relied on Bombay High Court decisions, various interpretation given by various courts and tribunal, and then we made a claim. So our claim is based on some solid interpretation, not our interpretation of the courts, of high courts. Now you say that no, we are amending the law retrospectively and we are penalizing you. That is not done, which of course the government also appreciates. They said that okay, they have said that we will levy penalty. However, they have given a window. They said that the SSC has an option of paying tax or disallowing or recomputing their income by disallowing cess and surcharge in a prescribed manner, in a prescribed form, within the prescribed time, and pay the basic tax, whatever is due with interest. Once that is done, then the under-reporting charge would not apply. So this section 155-18 says that पहला वो कहता कि under-reporting होगा, फिर वो बोलता proviso, provided that in case the SSC files a statement paying tax due or disallowing cess and surcharge and paying the tax due within the in the prescribed form, in the prescribed time, etc., then subsection 1 would not apply. तो क्या हो जाएगा, आपको क्या करना है, आपको आपके क्लाइंट्स में देखना है कि किसने किसने सर्चार्ज एंड सेस क्लेम किया हुआ है इन ऑल द अर्लियर ईयर्स. मेक अ लिस्ट ऑफ इट. इन टाइम्स टू कम the CBDT is going to suggest the mechanism, notify the procedure कि ये इसका जो टैक्स आपने रिडक्शन लिया है उसका टैक्स कैसे भरना है. बिकॉज इट्स नॉट पॉसिबल फॉर यू टू रिवाइज द रिटर्न्स ना. अभी तो रिटर्न कर भी नहीं सकते हो. 22 वाला भी रिटर्न रिवाइज नहीं कर सकते हो. अभी तो मार्च 21 वाला भी रिटर्न रिवाइज नहीं कर सकते. तो वो तो सब चला गया आपका क्लेम. तो उसको कैसे सेटल करोगे. तो दे हैव गिवन यू वन टाइम विंडो. तो यू हैव टू कीप अ ट्रैक, मेक अ लिस्ट ऑफ ऑल द क्लाइंट्स जहां पर भी एजुकेशन सेस क्लेम किया है, या सेंड एन ईमेल टू द क्लाइंट्स that if you have claimed education cess, okay, you are requested to kindly intimate to us, or you can do this exercise at your office as well. Make a list. Whenever the CBDT comes out with a circular, you ensure that this is filled in, whatever taxes to be paid is paid, so that you avoid levy of penalty. At time, so the law provides that the assessing officer has an authority to rectify this as an error under 154. जहां पर भी claim किया है, he can rectify. And the time limit available, this is very important. The time limit available for rectification with the officer is 4 years from the end of the financial year starting 1/4/2021. Okay, which means 22 के बाद 23, 24, 25, 26. So the assessing officer technically under this amended law has time till 31st March 2026 to pass the orders. To pass the orders disallowing your education cess claim and surcharge claim, plus very important, levying 50% penalty. वो 154 ऑर्डर में होगा. नॉर्मली 154 ऑर्डर में तो कोई पेनल्टी लगी नहीं सकती, बिकॉज 154 इज मिस्टेक अपेरेंट फ्रॉम द रिकॉर्ड. तो नॉर्मली उससे पेनल्टी नहीं लगती है. इफ इस रिकॉर्ड पे अवेलेबल है तो इसे मिस्टेक. ओके. एंड मोर ओवर, ये तो आपने रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव अमेंडमेंट किया, तो द कोर्ट्स विल नेवर अलाउ कि यू कैन नॉट मेक एन अमेंडमेंट रेट्रोस्पेक्टिवली एंड देन लेवी पेनल्टी. That is not, that's against the principle of natural justice. Okay, but to enable the assessing officer to levy penalty, there is a specific provision introduced saying that this will be treated as, okay, under reporting of income, and they have given a window to the SSC that don't worry, the SSC, those who still want to comply, have this option. You pay the taxes, you will be excluded from penalty, and the assessing officer has a time till 31st March 2026 to do rectification in respect of all such claim. अभी वो कब करेंगे, कैसे करेंगे, that is the internal matter and administrative matter. But I would highly recommend, strongly recommend that जहाँ पर भी claim किया हुआ है, client को intimate करो, उसको भरना है नहीं भरना है, that's his call. But it's our responsibility as a consultant to inform them that this is what it is. Okay. Now this is 149, time limit for issue of notice. Now this 148A and this have changed the whole game, and things have not really complicated the things, but they have streamlined so many things. So penalty, sorry, search का जो assessments होता थे 153A, B, सब निकाल के उन्होंने everything now has been incorporated into 148A, and उसका time limit वगैरह सब एक जगह लेके आ गए. तो आपके penalty search वाले matter हो, regular assessments हो, कोई भी assessments हो, सब assessments सभी 148 में होंगे, और उसकी सबकी timeline 149 में दी हुई है. So as you're aware that पहले the time limits were 4 years and 6 years. 4 साल तक रीओपन हो सकता है, 4 के बाद रीओपन करना है, up to 6 years रीओपन हो सकता है. उसमें फिर there should be default on the part of the SSE to represent the facts वगैरह वगैरह था. They amended the law with effect from 21-22, and they provided that the assessment can be reopened only up to 3 years. However, it can be reopened up to 10 years in the following circumstances. That is, the income is more than 50 lakh, income escaping assessment is more than 50 lakhs. There is some asset which is found out, some expenditure and incorrect expenditure claimed, entries in the books of account. उन्होंने इसको expand भी किया, that I am not discussing because that's a topic in itself to discuss. So long and short of it is that उन्होंने पूरा scheme of timeline को change करके जो कंप्लाइंट एसएससीज हैं, जो एसएससीज 50 लाख के अंदर वाले इनकम वाले छोटे एसएससीज हैं, उनको 3 साल में छुट्टा कर देंगे. 3 साल हो गया, आपके बारे में कोई इन्फॉर्मेशन आती भी है और वो 50 लाख से अंदर है, नथिंग कैन बी डन. दैट्स ओवर फॉर एवर। 50 लाख के ऊपर है तो जो पहले 6 साल था उसको उन्होंने बढ़ा के कर दिया 10 साल। ओके, नाउ जस्ट इमेजिन एज ऑन 31 मार्च 2020 13-14 रीओपन हो सकता था 6 साल के हिसाब से। 14-15 रीओपन, 14-15-16-17-18 19-20, तो 14-15 was could have been reopened as on 31st March 20, 6 years के basis पे। Okay, now from 1st April 21 उन्होंने 10 साल कर दिया, which means 21 से आप 10 साल में जाओगे तो 12-13 तक रीओपन हो सकता है ना। आप बोलो ये तो गलत है, कल तक मुझे आपने बोला था 6 साल तक रीओपन होगा, तो मैंने 6 साल का बुक्स रखा, बाकी सब बुक्स डिस्ट्रॉय कर दिए या नहीं अवेलेबल है। Now you cannot go in future and past मेरा रीओपन करने का अथॉरिटी दे दो, दैट इज रॉन्ग। तो द गवर्नमेंट से दैट वी एग्री विद यू। तो व्हाट वी विल डू इज ये 10 साल अप्लीकेबल होगा, बट इट कैन नॉट ट्रेवल टू दोज इयर्स व्हिच कुड नॉट हैव बीन ओपन एज ऑन 31st मार्च 2020। व्हाट आई मीन टू से इज अगर 31st मार्च 20 को 13-14 रीओपन नहीं हो सकता है तो ये 10 साल में 13-14 में रीओपन नहीं होगा। 10 साल विल अप्लाई ओनली अप टू 14-15, उसके आगे हम लोग ये नया प्रोविजन यूज नहीं करेंगे इन शॉर्ट। तो व्हाट विल हैपन इज एवरी ईयर एक ईयर ऐड होगा एंड समवेयर अराउंड 2025-26 जाके 24-25 में जाके ये 10 साल पूरा यूज हो सकेगा। बिकॉज एवरी टाइम यू हैव टू सी कि अगर ये ईयर 31st मार्च 20 को रीओपन करना था तो हो सकता था क्या, नहीं हो सकता था, तो अभी भी नहीं कर सकता। तो फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर आपको आज नोटिस आ जाता है 13-14 असेसमेंट ईयर का, ऑफिसर बोलते देखो 10 साल में बैठ रहा है, आज वी आर इन 22-23, तो 13-14 10 साल के अंदर बैठ रहा है, तो आपको क्या देखना है कि ठीक है बैठ रहा है। 31st मार्च 20 को जाके देखो वेदर 6 साल में ये रीओपन हो रहा है, नहीं हो रहा है। तो इफ इट कैन नॉट बी रीओपन ऑन 31st मार्च 20, इट कैन नॉट बी रीओपन ऑन 23rd February 22। दैट्स अ सिंपल लॉ। नाउ ओके, वहां पर क्या हो गया कि देयर वाज अ लूपहोल और देयर वाज अ एरर रिमेन्ड इन द सेक्शन। उन्होंने सिर्फ 6 इयर्स वाला सेक्शन लिखा था, दैट इज if it could not be reopened under 143(2) or 148 within 6 years, it cannot be reopened now. Now, अभी क्या हुआ, this section, सर्च वाला सेक्शन पहले अलग था 153A, ओके 153A 153C, जहां पर 10 साल तक पहले भी था। तो रेगुलर असेसमेंट ईयर मैक्सिमम रीओपनिंग वाज 6 years, सर्च मैटर मैक्सिमम रीओपनिंग वाज 10 years. So when they mention only 6 years, तो सारे सर्च वाले जो थे वो छूट गए। तो सर्च वाले क्या बोलते हैं कि हम 31st मार्च में जाके देखेंगे कि रीओपन कितना होता है 14-15 तक। तो आज मेरे यहाँ सर्च होता है 21-22 में, तो यू कैन नॉट गो बियॉन्ड 14-15 असेसमेंट ईयर। नाउ दिस वाज अ मिस्टेक बिकॉज 31st मार्च 20 को द डिपार्टमेंट कुड हैव गॉन अप टू 11-12, ऑब्वियसली बिकॉज 10 साल तभी भी अवेलेबल था इनको। तो दे अमेंडेड द लॉ इन दिस ईयर विद रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव इफेक्ट बिकॉज इट वाज अ एरर इन द ड्राफ्टिंग। सो दे से दैट 6 साल रेगुलर असेसमेंट के लिए, बट अगर उनका कोई सर्च असेसमेंट पेंडिंग है, सर्च असेसमेंट है, तो सर्च असेसमेंट के लिए 31st मार्च 20 को 10 साल का टाइम देखो, हो सकता है तो आज भी हो सकता है। तो उन्होंने जो लेक्यूना था वो निकाल दिया। तो सारे सर्च केसेस जो 21-22 में हुए थे, ओरिजिनली व्हेन द सर्च वाज कंडक्टेड, the department used to take information only from 14-15 onwards, saying that उसके पहले का तो हम रीओपन कर ही नहीं सकते। But the moment this is amended, I think they started calling for the information of 13-14, 12-13, 11-12, because all those years now can be covered under the new provisions. Okay, so this is an interesting provision 149. Always whenever you receive a notice of the earlier years, please see, ignore the new provision. Old provision में ये notice valid है, yes, then only new provision valid है। अगर old provision valid नहीं है तो new provision भी valid नहीं है। This is as simple as a formula I can suggest, and you should check this every time. Okay, अगेन डॉक्टर्स के पीछे पड़े हुए, सेम थिंग। डॉक्टर्स को जो बेनिफिट्स, पार्टी, लर्निंग, सेमिनार, सेशन, वॉट एवर यू कॉल इट, गेटिंग, डॉक्टर्स ही नहीं है और भी बिजनेस होते हैं। इफ यू सी इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कंपनीज, ऑल दिस टेलीविजन कंपनीज, ऑल दिस वॉशिंग मशीन, ऑल दिस होम अप्लायंसेस कंपनीज, व्हाट दे डू इज पीरियडिकली वो टारगेट्स देते हैं। आप टारगेट्स पूरा करो, आपको फॉरेन टूर पे लेके जाते हैं, आपको गोल्ड कॉइन देते हैं, दे गिव यू सो मेनी बेनिफिट्स एंड इंसेंटिव्स इन काइंड। ओके, एंड वो जो बेनिफिट है वो डिडक्शन क्लेम करता है एक्सपेंडिचर करके, बट जो रिसिपिएंट है वो बोलता है नहीं हम तो बिजनेस मीटिंग के लिए गए थे, हम तो इसके लिए गए थे, तो वो गेटिंग इट डजंट गेट टैक्स्ड और इट डजंट गेट आइडेंटिफाइड और इट कैन नॉट बी वैल्यूड। अगर सपोज कोई यूएस का ट्रिप दे देता है 15 दिन का, बिकॉज यू हैव फुलफिल्ड द टारगेट इन दिस ईयर, यू गेट 2 tickets फॉर यूएस, मैं यूएस घूम के आ जाता हूँ, तो उसके ऊपर इनकम टैक्स तो भरना ही नहीं. देयर इज नो वे इन व्हिच इट कैन बी ट्रैक्ड, नो वे इन व्हिच इट विल बी वैल्यूड, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. So what they did is now to track all these things, they have introduced this section 194R. Any person responsible for providing a resident any benefit or perquisite arising from business or profession of such resident. यानी मैं अगर किसी को शिरडी का यात्रा करने के लिए लेके जाता हूँ ऐसे लोगों को, मेरे एरिया के लोगों को, ओके, तो दैट रेसिपिएंट or this provision would not apply. क्यों? Because such people or this शिरडी का यात्रा, okay, is not arising from business or profession of such resident. But if they are my vendors or my clients, और वो clients को मैं शिरडी लेके जाता हूँ because they are my clients, then in that case this section will be triggered. I hope these two examples would clear the scope of who the payer or the when the liability to deduct this tax would trigger. Okay. What is the TDS rate? 10% of the aggregate value of such benefits or perquisites. It can be in cash, it can be in kind. Okay, it can be partly in cash, partly in kind. Exemption threshold 20,000 रुपए पर annum. तो मिस्टर ए को मैंने एक ट्रिप करवाया, 12,000 खर्चा हुआ, नो टीडीएस. दूसरा ट्रिप करवाया, 6,000 खर्चा हुआ, नो टीडीएस. तीसरा ट्रिप करा रहा हूँ मैं, अगर उससे ज्यादा होता है तो देन जो भी एक्सेस होगा उसके ऊपर मुझे टैक्स करना है. पेयर एग्जेम्प्ट, सेम जो हमारे रेगुलर पेयर एग्जेम्प्ट है. Individual whose turnover does not exceed 1 crore, professional 50 lakhs, etc., etc. Incidence of tax is before providing such perks and benefits payment. Same provision जो हमने पहले देखा था 194S. Payer should before releasing the consideration TDS has to be deducted and paid. And obviously because इसमें 90% of this transaction will be in kind, तो उसके valuations वगैरह के बहुत issues आने वाले हैं. तो the board will come out with the guidelines in consultation with the government, okay, to remove any difficulty. So इसमें basically क्या होगा अभी कि suppose let's say there is a cruise tour organized for doctors by a pharmaceutical company, okay, and they will say that this is nothing but a training session, that there all the experts will come and they will discuss about the heart disease, pneumonia, tuberculosis, COVID variants. ये सब discuss करेंगे. It's only for learning. We will not promote our product, whatever it is. Anyways, ठीक है. But you are calling these doctors because arising from the business or profession of such doctors, because they are doctors, they are into business, you are calling them. Okay. So you are incurring the expenditure. Now वो expenditure allow होना नहीं होना तो अपने आप में question mark है section 37 में, that is independent. 194R says that when you are incurring this expenditure, okay, you have to identify कि कितने 50 लोग हैं, आपने 10 लाख खर्चा किया per person, आपने 20 लाख खर्चा किया, per person 40,000 रुपया खर्चा हो गया आपका. Okay. So now ये आपको 40,000 हुआ है per person, it is more than 20,000. तो सबका नाम निकालो, पैन नंबर लो, उसके ऊपर 10% TDS काटो. इससे क्या होगा? दो चीज होगा. एक तो इससे खर्चा क्या वो देखेगा इसके TDS रिटर्न में, प्लस 26 years में रिफ्लेक्ट होगा रिस्पेक्टिव प्रोफेशनल के. तो डिपार्टमेंट कैन ऑल्सो ट्रैक दैट दिस इज अ बेनिफिट व्हिच यू रिसीव्ड. अभी आपको टैक्स भरना है नहीं भरना, दैट्स अ स्टैंड विद द रिस्पेक्टिव रेसिपिएंट विल से, he'll say no, it was completely a learning session, it's not an income. So you may take that stand and claim that TDS as refund. अभी ये इशू ये होगा कि इसका जो TDS है, ये डॉक्टर को बोलेंगे तुम TDS दो, हम आपको घुमाने लेके जाएंगे. I don't know it will how it will work, but definitely they will say that, definitely he will say that आप ही भरो. तो उसमें वो एक और ग्रॉसिंग अप वगैरह का इशू होगा, but it will be reported in the respective doctors or respective consultants, which again will trigger one more round of inquiry from the department कि आपका 26 years में इनकम दिख रहा है जिसमें TDS काटा है, आपने ये रिपोर्ट नहीं किया. Getting to it will have multiple impacts as far as the compliances are concerned. So this is a move to ensure that, and this is not only for doctors. I'm just taking an example for doctors because वो 37 में हमने discuss किया था. This basically will cover any kind of tours. There are so many, and all this. I have a friend who is into garment manufacturing, cloth, fabric manufacturing. So he has all these clients spread across the length and breadth of the country. So he regularly, every quarterly, he has one event at Mussoorie or maybe at Jammu and Kashmir or so many places, various places, and he gives them a limit. कि इतना परचेस करो इतना टिकट्स मिलेगा. तो एज एन इंसेंटिव ही गिव्स. तो ऑल दोस इंसेंटिव्स वुड बी कवर्ड अंडर दिस कैटेगरी. और इसमें बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन मार्क्स होंगे, कैसे करेंगे, क्या करेंगे. 20,000 रुपीज एग्जम्पशन है कि 20,000 के ऊपर हो तो पूरे पे काटना है. ये सब का क्लैरिफिकेशन इज एक्सपेक्टेड sometime in times to come, because it's applicable from 1st July 2022, because normally TDS provisions they give 3 months time to gear up with the new provision, to gear up your software systems, etc., etc. So it will apply, and by that time the government will come with some circular giving all the clarification, basis of valuation, kaise valuation karna hai, kya karna hai, etc., etc. Other amendments, TDS provisions 194 IA, you know, TDS on immovable property. तो पहले TDS क्या था, जितना आप पेमेंट करते हो, सॉरी एग्रीड कंसिडरेशन है, उसके ऊपर आप 1% काटते थे. नाउ उन्होंने कहा कि अगर आपका स्टैम्प ड्यूटी वैल्यू एग्रीड कंसिडरेशन से ज्यादा है, तो स्टैम्प ड्यूटी वैल्यू पे आप TDS काटो. नाउ दिस इज समथिंग व्हिच we all need to be very careful, because most of our clients are exposed to this provision, and especially the clients who are not really into a business or are very pro with the tax laws. They are people who are ordinary people who are just buying the house once in a lifetime, getting, and they engage into this kind of transaction. या कोई property बेचा है, लिया है. So all this case now, at a time of compliance with TDS, you will have to also see. पहले तो हम क्या करते हैं, कितना पेमेंट किया, डायरेक्ट उसके ऊपर 1% काट के डिपॉजिट कर देते हैं. Now you need to be very careful that in your checklist you have to mention, you have to check consideration or stamp duty valuation, which means वो आपको डिटेल देता है कि ये मैंने पेमेंट किया, आप डायरेक्ट टैक्स डिपॉजिट कर दोगे, probably there will be non compliance, because now the TDS provision is applicable on whichever is higher, which means you have to call for the stamp duty valuation or the agreement copy if it is registered, and see what is the stamp duty valuation and write what is the consideration. Whichever is higher is the base for deducting 1% TDS. Okay, so this is very important for all of us to remember, because कल अगर नोटिस आता है नॉन कंप्लायंस का, तो एसएससी बोलेगा कि यार you are responsible, how do I supposed to know, I have given it to you, you should have asked for the details. Okay, and this is a very subtle amendment which has been made. I don't know what was the need to make this amendment, but nevertheless for them to get the information on the full value as well. Okay, 206 AB, that was a special provision which was introduced in the last year for non-filers. Okay, so earlier 2 साल का उनका रिक्वायरमेंट था, 2 साल का रिटर्न फाइल किया, उसको उन्होंने कम करके 1 साल कर दिया है, तो और थोड़ा उसको टाइट कर दिया है. Okay, TDS का अदर अमेंडमेंट, दिस इज इंटरेस्टिंग अमेंडमेंट. क्या होता था कि अर्लियर, सपोज इफ आई वांट टू मेक अ पेमेंट टू नॉन रेसिडेंट, एज पर द एग्रीमेंट वो TDS का लायबिलिटी मेरा है, पेयर का. ओके, आई एम इन टू व्यूज कि ये टैक्स डिडक्टिबल है नहीं है, आई एम नॉट श्योर. तो व्हाट आई यूज्ड टू अर्लियर डू is I used to deduct the tax, deposit the tax, and make an application to CIT appeal. CIT appeal, saying that इसके ऊपर टैक्स नहीं डिडक्टेबल है, ये मेरा केस है, आप डिसीजन दो. तो वो डिसीजन देता था, वो कहता था कि डिडक्टेबल है, तो मैंने तो ऑलरेडी डिडक्ट कर दिया. अगर वो बोलता था डिडक्टेबल नहीं है, ओके, तो वो ऑर्डर लेके आई यूज्ड टू गो टू द ऑफिसर एंड क्लेम द रिफंड. दैट वाज अ प्रोविजन अर्लियर. उन्होंने इसको प्रॉपर्ली कोडिफाई कर दिया अभी. तो इन्होंने क्या बोला है कि वो जो सेक्शन था ना, वो उन्होंने भी ये कर दिया, डिसमेंटल कर दिया है. 1/4/2022 onwards, that section 247A has been dismantled now. It is not applicable. 239A नया अमेंडमेंट इन्होंने इंट्रोड्यूस कर दिया है. तो व्हाट इज द क्लेस, टैक्स इज डिडक्टेबल अदर देन इंटरेस्ट. इंटरेस्ट के लिए ये सेक्शन अवेलेबल नहीं है, वो भी अवेलेबल नहीं है. टैक्स इज टू बी बोर्न बाय डिडक्टर. अगर आपका कॉस्ट नहीं है, देन यू कैन नॉट क्लेम रिफंड ऑब्वियसली. तो इट शुड बी योर लायबिलिटी. तो एग्रीमेंट वो क्लॉज होना चाहिए कि टैक्स इज टू बी बोर्न बाय डिडक्टर. टैक्स हैज बीन डिडक्टेड एंड पेड, तो आपने डिडक्ट भी कर दिया और गवर्नमेंट को दे भी दिया. एंड डिडक्टर इज क्लेमिंग दैट दिस टैक्स इज नॉट डिडक्टेबल. तो अगर ऐसा मेरा क्लेम है तो मैंने टैक्स डिपॉजिट करना, एंड आप बोलो सर डिडक्ट ही मत करो. बट अगर मैं डिडक्ट नहीं करता और कल डिपार्टमेंट अगर ऑर्डर पास करके बोल देता कि यू हैव फेल्ड टू डिडक्ट टैक्स, तो मेरा एक्सपेंडिचर डिसला होगा, टैक्स के ऊपर मुझे इंटरेस्ट, पेनल्टी, प्रोसिक्यूशन, सो मेनी थिंग्स वुड कम अप ना. तो व्हाई आई वुड टेक चांस? आई डोंट वांट टू टेक चांस. आई वांट टू बी क्लियर. इफ इट इज पेएबल आई विल पे इट, इफ नॉट पेएबल आई विल नॉट पे. तो ये एक उनको विंडो दिया था इधर. तो अभी यहाँ क्या बोलते हैं कि इफ द डिडक्टर इज थिंक्स दैट टैक्स हैज बीन डिडक्टेड एंड पेड बट इट्स नॉट डिडक्टेबल, देन विद इन द पीरियड ऑफ 30 days फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्स, यू शुड फाइल एन एप्लीकेशन बिफोर द AO क्लेमिंग द रिफंड. उसको ये मैंने पे किया है, ये हमारा केस है, दिस इज द रीजन व्हाई इट इज नॉट पेबल, दिस आर द सपोर्टिंग एग्रीमेंट्स, डॉक्यूमेंट्स, प्लीज गिव मी द रिफंड. AO हैज टू पास एन ऑर्डर within the 6 months from the end of the month in which the application is filed. तो अभी टाइम बाउंड हो गया. पहले क्या था, I have also made applications to CIT appeals. It has been years now. It has never come up, and there is no time limit applicable to appellate orders. So it gets and unnecessary, it gets escalated for no reason. Okay, so और ये फेसलेस नहीं होगा बिकॉज अभी तक इसका फेसलेस स्कीम नहीं आया हुआ, तो ये फिजिकली होगा. सो unless they amend the law and say that इसको भी faceless लेके जाना है, which I doubt. But anyways, as of now there is no provision, which means अगर आपको आज ये use करना है provision, तो this will be physical. So आप AO के बाद जब file करोगे application, so AO will give you an opportunity, of course, to offer. After all this, he will have to pass an order within 6 months from the end of the month in which application is filed. So this is a good provision. And अगर सब आप बोलोगे सर इसने अगर रिजेक्ट कर दिया हमारा, तो क्या होगा? अगर इसने आपका ये रिजेक्ट कर दिया, तो सेक्शन 246A appeal before CIT appeal, that section is amended to provide that order passed under 239A is appealable. Order passed under section 239A is appealable. तो वो आप अपील हुआ फाइल कर सकते हो. तो फिर जो स्टेज 1 था वो स्टेज 2 हो जाएगा. एंड स्टेज 2 में क्या होगा कि सारा एनालिसिस, दोनों साइड का स्टोरी आ गया. आपने क्या बोला वो आ गया, असेसिंग ऑफिसर ने क्या बोल के रिजेक्ट किया है. तो दैट इज द करेक्ट वे इन विच एन अपीलेट अथॉरिटी शुड लुक एट द थिंग्स rather than appellate authority looking at the things for the first time. And that was the flaw with the original provision, जहां पर assessing of CIT appeal के पास पहली बार ही केस जाता था. Getting? So and CIT appeal is not in a position to actually do research and study the facts and make out the case. वो डिपार्टमेंट करता है. And अपील में जब जाता है तो डिपार्टमेंट का भी केस उसके सामने है, हमारा भी केस उसके सामने, and then he can consider weight कि कौन सा करेक्ट है कौन सा नहीं है, what is the decision he has to take. तो अपीलेट अथॉरिटी में दोनों साइड होना चाहिए तभी अपील होता है. Okay, तो उसको रेगुलराइज कर दिया. 239A is a very interesting and new provision and very useful provision in such cases. Deterrence against tax evasion. Now this is something which, though they have made it applicable from 1/4/2023, एक साल का सबको टाइम दिया है समझने का और थोड़ा होश में आने का. But this 68 section was in any case a dangerous section because इसका taxability is at 75%. No deduction is allowed, no allowance, set off, nothing is allowed. Okay. And it is a very loosely worded section, and it says that if the assessing officer is not satisfied with your explanation, he can invoke the provision. This is the cash credit. अगर आपके बुक्स में कोई credit है and the explanation offered by you is not satisfactory. Normally क्या होता है, as you must be aware, आपने किसी का लोन लिया हुआ है बुक्स में, तो आपके बुक्स में क्रेडिट पड़ा है. ऑफिसर बोलेगा इसका जस्टिफिकेशन दो, तो यू विल गिव द बैंक अकाउंट डिटेल. वो बोलेगा नहीं इसका क्रेडेंशियल प्रूव करो, इसके पास का क्या अथॉरिटी, पैसा है नहीं है, कैपेसिटी है, तो यू विल प्रूव एवरीथिंग. Okay. Once he is satisfied, that's okay. If he is not satisfied, then he will say, no, you have not satisfied me. To the best of my satisfaction. It's not to the best of my satisfaction, and therefore I am not agreeing with your explanation. I am adding this loan amount under 68, and everything gets triggered. Then no penalty, it goes into different shot altogether. Now earlier क्या होता था, जब लोन या बोरोइंग्स होती थी अपने बुक्स में, okay, we used to establish the credential of the assessee कि देखो ये आदमी है, एग्जिस्टेंस में है, बिजनेस में है, रिटर्न फाइल करता है, इसका बैंक अकाउंट है, ये इसका रिटर्न का डिटेल्स है. And we used to establish the credentials and give it to them. फिर असेसिंग ऑफिसर कभी बोलता था कि ठीक है उसने आपको दिया, उसने कहाँ से लाया वो भी बताओ. अभी उसने कहाँ से लाया, तो आई यूज्ड टू से दैट हाउ कैन आई गिव यू द इंफॉर्मेशन. मैंने प्रूव कर दिया उसके पास पैसा आया, उसने मुझे पैसा दिया है ना, उसके पास कहां से आया ये मैं प्रूव नहीं कर सकता हूं. तो some cases the department took the view that no, you have to prove that source also, which is called source ka source. Okay, so the courts including the Supreme Court have said that you cannot ask for source ka source, otherwise there is no end to it na. आपको हमने source बता दिया, if you are not you're satisfied by the source, that's all. You cannot now say that source का source चाहिए. So शेयर कैपिटल में ये मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग बहुत होता था, बिकॉज शेयर कैपिटल से पैसा मिल जाता था, टैक्स भी नहीं लगता था. तो they amended the law in finance in 2012 saying that share application money या share capital अगर आता है अपने पास कंपनी में, तो section 68 would be triggered, and not only source but even the explanation for source should be given. So that amendment was already there in 2012. Now similar amendment they have introduced with effect from 1/4/2023. Okay, wherein they are saying that ये जो पैसा आपने बोरो किया है इसमें सिर्फ आपका ही, आपने कहाँ से लिया उसका एक्सप्लेनेशन नहीं देना है, बट जिसने आपको पैसा दिया है उसने भी एस्टेब्लिश करना है नेचर एंड सोर्स, यानी नेचर यानी किस टाइप का इनकम है और उसका सोर्स क्या है. अगर वो नहीं एस्टेब्लिश करता है, then the assessing officer can make that addition under section 68. Now this is very, very dangerous, which means that if you borrow money from an other than a financial institution, from a friend or relative or somebody, okay, then I don't know how it will work. Any foreign country से भी borrow किया तो भी covered है इसमें. Share application money में at least आपने foreign से borrow किया है ना, तो that section doesn't apply to income or the share application money given by non-resident. But this clause covers even non-residents. But it is only for loans and borrowings. But this is a very, very dangerous provision if you are borrowing it from friend. काफी बार क्या होता है कि friend को बैंक के में डिपॉजिट कर देते पैसा एंड उससे चेक लेके अपने पास ले लिया, हमने देखो उसके बैंक का पैसा था, हमने ले लिया, हमने एक्सप्लेन कर दिया. नाउ द डिपार्टमेंट कैन कॉल दैट पर्सन जिसने आपको लोन दिया है, उसको बोलेगा कि तुम एस्टैब्लिश करो तुम्हारे पास कहां से पैसा आया. एंड इफ ही इज नॉट एबल टू एस्टैब्लिश दैट, then even your justification would not be accepted. So the explanation has to be given at two sources, one by you giving justification of the lender and another by lender giving justification for the money which has come to his account. तो अगर वो explanation नहीं दे पाता प्रॉपर्ली, कहाँ से आया कैसे आया, बोलेगा नहीं नहीं एग्रीकल्चर इनकम से आया, आई हैव डन एग्रीकल्चर एक्टिविटी, तो बोलेगा ठीक है लैंड दिखाओ, आपका एपीएमसी का रिसीट दिखाओ, वो बोला नहीं घूम गया है. तो इफ यू गिव सम इल्यूसिव आंसर्स, okay, so the department will say, okay, we are not satisfied with the answers you are giving us, and therefore you have not been able to establish nature and source. Sorry, we are not satisfied, and section whatever loan you have taken, it would be added as income under section 68, triggering all the other provisions of the law. Okay. Section 79A has been introduced with effect from 1/4/2022. Now this is interesting. What earlier used to happen is, suppose search hua kahin, what people used to do is they used to take out the money from the company and the company used to go into losses and they used to make money in their personal account. Now search ho jata tha, suppose, yeah, whatever reason there are losses in the business and search happens and they realize that business में loss नहीं था, business से सब पैसा इन्होंने निकाल दिया, तो वो सब expenditure disallow किया, ये किया, तो business में income हो जाता है. तो what is to say that देखो business में income हुआ 10 करोड़ का, मेरे पास books में 10 करोड़ का loss पड़ा है, set off दे दो. Courts used to say yes correct है, set off तो मिलेगा. ये पूरा exercise and activity जो department ने किया, everything is in vain because they are being able to claim all the set off, unabsorbed depreciation, bought forward losses, सब कुछ claim कर रहे हैं. So to avoid those, it is a deterrence against the tax evasion and black money. They have come out with this new section saying that going forward with effect from 1/4/2022, कोई भी आपको set off नहीं मिलेगा if the set off is to be claimed against undisclosed income resulting as a consequence of search, requisition, survey other than TDS survey. Again, they have given the explanation. A TDS survey is not really a survey based on some information. तो अगर आपके इधर सर्च हुआ है, रिक्विजिशन हुआ है, सर्वे हुआ है अदर देन टीडीएस, एंड वो कॉन्सिक्वेंस में आपका कोई इनकम डिटरमिन हुआ है, वो इनकम के ऊपर आप सेट ऑफ क्लेम नहीं कर सकते हो. ओके. एंड व्हेन दे आर सेइंग वेदर बॉट फॉरवर्ड और अदरवाइज, व्हिच मींस दैट देखो लॉस कहाँ से आ सकता है, बॉट फॉरवर्ड से आ सकता है, अमालगमेशन से आ सकता है, डीमर्जर से आ सकता है, सक्सेशन से आ सकता है, तो वो अदरवाइज है. व्हिच मींस अगर आपका 54F का डिडक्शन है, 54 का डिडक्शन है, कोई 24B का डिडक्शन है, डिडक्शन मिलेगा, सेट ऑफ लॉस नहीं मिलेगा. अगर आपका कोई डिडक्शन क्लेम करना रह गया था, सेट ऑफ एग्जम्पशन क्लेम करना रह गया था, दैट ऑल कैन बी क्लेम. दैट उसके लिए अभी भी कोई प्रोहिबिशन नहीं है. दिस प्रोहिबिशन इज ओनली फॉर अनअब्सॉर्ब्ड डेप्रिसिएशन एंड set off of loss whether carried bought forward or otherwise, and otherwise includes not only your loss but loss which has been come to you because of various schemes. 285B, this is an interesting section, not very often used by people. It is applicable to the SSEs earlier who were into the business of production of cinematograph film. तो उनके लिए क्या होता है, every time they incur an expenditure above 50,000, उनको एक्सपेंडिचर का पूरा डिटेल बना के, पिक्चर जैसे कंप्लीट होती है वो सारी डिटेल बना के डिपार्टमेंट को देनी होती है. तो डिपार्टमेंट हैज दैट कंप्लीट डिटेल ऑफ एक्सपेंडिचर इनकर्ड ऑन सिनेमेटोग्राफ फिल्म, कि एक्टर को कितना दिया, डायरेक्टर को कितना दिया, कैमरामैन को कितना दिया, पूरा इसका फॉर्मेट है. वो फॉर्मेट में आपको इन्फॉर्मेशन फाइल करनी होती है. नाउ विद इफेक्ट ऑफ 1/4/22 इन्होंने इसका स्कोप बढ़ा दिया है. क्या क्या बढ़ा दिया है? इवेंट मैनेजमेंट, इफ यू आर इनटू द बिजनेस ऑफ इवेंट मैनेजमेंट, वो आ गया. यानी सिनेमेटोग्राफ फिल्म तो है ही है, इवेंट मैनेजमेंट आ गया. आजकल डॉक्यूमेंट्री बनाते लोग, जो ओटीटी या सब जगह बोलते हैं डॉक्यूमेंट्री, जो बनाते बोलते नहीं, इट्स नॉट ए फिल्म, सिनेमेटोग्राफ फिल्म, बिकॉज़ सिनेमा में नहीं चलती है, इसे डॉक्यूमेंट्री. तो डॉक्यूमेंट्री कवर कर दिया. प्रोडक्शन ऑफ प्रोग्राम फॉर टेलीकास्टिंग ऑन टीवी एंड ओटीटी. पहले ओटीटी, टीवी, टेलीविजन वाले को कवर नहीं था, बिकॉज़ दिस वर नॉट टू बी शोन इन सिनेमा. स्पोर्ट्स मैनेजमेंट कंपनी, अदर परफॉर्मिंग आर्ट्स and any other activity as may be notified. So what government is trying to do is they are trying to amend various laws including TDS provisions wherein they will get maximum information from the source, and then their artificial intelligence will start working and will decide कि इसको एसेस करना है, इसको सर्च करना है, इसको सर्वे करना है, I think they will give the results, and basis that intelligence they will do their further inquiry and investigation to unearth the black money and compliances and etc etc. So they have expanded the scope substantially. तो अगर आपका कोई भी client ये कोई भी activity में है, अभी तक 5 notify नहीं किया है, ये 5 activities में involved है, तो please ensure the compliance with section 285B. Trust provision I'll quickly take in because अपने को थोड़ा question and answers के लिए time रखना है. So 1/4/2023, there are various conditions under section 12A which has to be complied in order to claim exemption deduction under section 11 and section 12. As you are aware that trust का अगर income होता है तो उसका 11-12 पूरा exemption मिल जाता है, 85% spend करना है वगैरह वगैरह. There are so many provisions. So section 12A talks of various conditions. So एक condition अगर आपको याद होगा तो ये है कि return of income should be filed in time. तो अगर आप टाइम पे फाइल नहीं करते हो तो इस सेक्शन 11-12 का आपको एग्जम्पशन नहीं मिलता है. ये साल में इन्होंने एक नया कंडीशन डाला है, तो आप लोगों ने सबने ध्यान रखना है. ट्रस्ट जो भी आपके क्लाइंट है, यू एंश्योर दैट दिस कंडीशन इज सैटिस्फाइड. द बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स एंड अदर डॉक्यूमेंट्स हैव बीन केप्ट एंड मेंटेन्ड इन सच फॉर्म एंड मैनर and at such place as may be prescribed. So obviously there will be a notification which will come and they will give that the books of account should be available at the trust office. So suppose the department comes for a survey at trust office and the books of accounts are not available and this section says that it should be available at book trust office. So they will say देखो ये condition आपका satisfy नहीं हुआ है and therefore your exemption under 11 and 12 is not available to you. Okay. So following additional condition has been prescribed. So ये एक नया condition है apart from the existing condition. This is the additional conditions. Earlier ये कैंसिलेशन के लिए 24/12 AB में था कि अगर आपका ट्रस्ट का जेन्युइन एक्टिविटी नहीं है, ऑब्जेक्ट के लिए खर्चा नहीं किया तो इट विल बी कैंसिल्ड रजिस्ट्रेशन. अभी इन्होंने क्या किया, उसको है ना बहुत एलोबरेटली उन्होंने एक्सप्लेन किया सब कुछ. तो इन्होंने अमेंड कर दिया उसी सेक्शन को और उन्होंने बोला कि द डिसअलाउंस और द कैंसिलेशन ऑफ रजिस्ट्रेशन विल हैपन ऑन अकरेंस ऑफ स्पेसिफाइड वायलेशन. और स्पेसिफाइड वायलेशन में इन्होंने वो डाल दिया कि आपने ऑब्जेक्टिव खर्च नहीं किया, आपने प्राइवेट रिलीजियस फंक्शन के लिए खर्च किया है या आपने पर्टिकुलर कम्युनिटी के बेनिफिट के लिए खर्च किया. वैसे 7-8 वायलेशंस उसमें दिए उन्होंने. फिर उन्होंने कहा कि रेफरेंस मेड बाय एओ अंडर 143(3). तो अर्लियर क्या होता था कि असेसिंग ऑफिसर ट्रस्ट का असेसमेंट कर रहा है और उसको पता चला कि ट्रस्ट इज नॉट फंक्शनिंग एज इट शुड हैव बीन फंक्शन, देयर आर मैल प्रैक्टिसेस वगैरह वगैरह. तो उसको असेसिंग ऑफिसर डजंट हैव राइट टू कैंसिल द रजिस्ट्रेशन ऑफ द ट्रस्ट. ही विल हैव टू सेंड अ रेफरेंस टू द प्रिंसिपल कमिश्नर ऑफ इनकम टैक्स. तो वो रेफरेंस में भी ये सेक्शन ट्रिगर हो जाएगा. एंड थर्ड विच इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, बोर्ड, जैसे मैंने अभी आपसे बात की थी कि आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस इज वर्किंग, तो बोर्ड के पास आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस या जो भी उनके मैनेजमेंट स्ट्रेटजी से लगता है कि नहीं ये ट्रस्ट का एग्जामिन करना चाहिए, तो वो ट्रस्ट को एग्जामिन ये लोग इंडिपेंडेंटली कर सकते हैं. तो ये देखो स्कोप बढ़ा दिया. पहले ये स्कोप, ये बोर्ड का रिस्क मैनेजमेंट स्ट्रेटेजी का स्कोप नहीं था पहले, तो नाउ इन्होंने इसको भी इंक्लूड कर दिया. जैसे आपका केस होता है, आपके केस इज सिलेक्टेड बेस्ड ऑन द रिस्क मैनेजमेंट स्ट्रेटेजी ऑफ द बोर्ड. तो ऑल योर 143(2) नोटिसेस okay are issued based on risk management strategy. So on same principle the notice will be issued under 12AB(4), okay, for verification of the trust activity by the commissioner to see whether your registration should continue or your registration should be cancelled. Okay. And specified violations क्या है उन्होंने सबसेक्शन 4 में एक्सप्लेन किया हुआ है. So जब भी ये ट्रिगर होता है तो प्रिंसिपल CIT और CIT shall make inquiries, give you an opportunity of being heard and pass an order in writing either cancelling your registration or refusing to cancel the registration within the period of 6 months. Now this is important. अगर वो टाइम चला जाता तो फिर your registration cannot be cancelled within the period of 6 months calculated from the end of the quarter in which first notice was issued. So if first notice is issued in let's say April, May, June, कहीं भी, तो जून के बाद 6 months यानी 31st December 2022 तक he has to give the order in writing. Okay. This is a good section 1310. पहले क्या था कि जैसे हम लोगों ने डिस्कस किया कि बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट मेंटेन नहीं किया, रिटर्न फाइल नहीं किया, तो क्या होता था, आपका एग्जम्पशन पूरा चला जाता था. Okay. तो एग्जम्पशन जब जाता था तो what has happened that you have received 1 crore rupees and you actually spent 95 lakhs rupees for charitable activity. आपके पास 5 लाख बचा है और डिपार्टमेंट बोलता है कि नहीं आपका एग्जम्पशन चला गया, अभी 1 करोड़ के ऊपर 30 लाख भरो. You will say अरे यार मैंने 95 lakhs तो एक्चुअल एक्टिविटी के लिए स्पेंड कर दी, मेरे पास 5 लाख बचा, हाउ कैन आई पे 35 lakhs? इट वाज नॉट फेयर, इट वाज अनफेयर. तो दे रियलाइज, देरी से ही सही, बट रियलाइज किया कि नहीं नहीं ये गलत है. अगर हम उनको एग्जम्पशन नहीं दे रहे हैं तो एटलीस्ट वी शुड अलाउ देम रिडक्शन in respect of such expenditure which they have actually incurred for the object of the trust. So what they have listed out some categories कि ये category में हम ये relief देंगे. तो अगर suppose आप business, आप trust चला रहे हो और आप trust के अंदर आपकी एक business activity भी हो रही है, आप किससे fees ले रहे हो, कुछ charges ले रहे हो, and that charges exceeds 10 lakhs rupees or 25% of your income. You remember that proviso 1 to section 215. We say that अगर आपका other charitable activity है, तो उसमें अगर आप बिजनेस एक्टिविटी है, आपकी फीस वगैरह आप ले रहे हो, then you will not be eligible to claim exemption. तो अगर फॉर सम रीजन वो ट्रिगर हो जाता है, या अभी हमने डिस्कस किया स्पेसिफाइड बुक्स आर नॉट मेंटेन इन द फॉर्म और इन द मैनर और एट द प्लेस, या आपने रिटर्न ऑफ इनकम टाइम से फाइल नहीं किया, तो ये केसेस में आपको पूरा का पूरा डिसअलाउंसेस नहीं होगा, या आपका पूरा इनकम डायरेक्ट टैक्सेबल नहीं होगा. वो कहता है हम आपको डिडक्शन देंगे. क्या डिडक्शन देंगे? आपने जो भी खर्चा टुवर्ड्स द ऑब्जेक्ट ऑफ द ट्रस्ट किया उसका हम खर्चा दे देंगे. हाउएवर आपको डिडक्शन ये चीजों क्या चीजों का नहीं मिलेगा. ए, कॉर्पस से अगर आपने खर्चा किया हम डिडक्शन नहीं देंगे. आपने लोन लेके खर्चा किया है हम डिडक्शन नहीं देंगे. अगर आपने एसेट का डिडक्शन क्लेम कर दिया ऑलरेडी तो उसका डेप्रिसिएशन नहीं मिलेगा. एंड मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट इज D1. काफी बार ट्रस्ट क्या करती है, डायरेक्ट खर्चा नहीं करती है, किसी और ट्रस्ट को डोनेशन दे देती है. तो अगर आपने डोनेशन दिया है देन उसका हम डिडक्शन आपको नहीं देंगे. यानी मेरा 1 करोड़ का इनकम हुआ, मैंने 95 लाख का डोनेशन दे दिया किसी को और रिटर्न फाइल नहीं किया टाइम से, तो आई विल नॉट गेट डिडक्शन ऑफ दैट 95 lakhs बिकॉज दैट इज इन फॉर्म ऑफ डोनेशन. बट अगर ये 95 lakhs मैंने एक्चुअल चैरिटेबल एक्टिविटी किया है देन आई विल गेट डिडक्शन फॉर 95 lakhs. 5 lakhs रुपीस मेरे हाथ में टैक्सेबल हो जाएगा. एंड प्रोविजन ऑफ 40A3 दैट इज कैश पेमेंट वगैरह, 40A1 नॉन डिडक्शन ऑफ टैक्स, ये भी अप्लाई होगा. तो अगर आपने कोई पेमेंट किया है जिसमें टैक्स नहीं काटा है तो उतना डिसअलाउंस जो भी आपका 40A1 का होता है वो सब होगा. बाकी इसके अलावा जो भी खर्चा आप इनकर करो वो सारा का सारा आपको डिडक्शन मिलेगा. एंड दिस इज अ वेरी वेलकम प्रोविजन आई वुड से. अर्लियर ये प्रोविजन नहीं होने की वजह से देयर यूज्ड टू बी क्वेश्चन मार्क. डिपार्टमेंट पूरा का पूरा डिसअलाउ करता था. एंड वी यूज्ड टू आर्ग्यू दैट हमने खर्चा तो कर दिया ना, नॉन कंप्लायंस हुआ होगा कोई इधर उधर छोटा मोटा, बट यू कैन नॉट टैक्स ऑन द ग्रॉस अमाउंट. नो, दिस इज अ वेलकम स्टेप. ओके, फिर इसी से कनेक्टेड है कि जब इनकम होती है because of withdrawal of exemption or non-compliance of condition. So earlier the provision was that this income is taxable at maximum marginal rate, which is a maximum rate applicable to an individual, which is 30% presently. Okay, तो उसमें बहुत सारे confusion थे because that was not a specific provision. What they have now done is they have introduced 115 BBI, a specific section. Okay, now it says that a trust would be liable to pay tax straight at 30%. And as you know, whenever there is a special provision, no exemption deductions are available. So no deduction or allowance or set off shall be allowed in respect of the specified income. So if your income is a specified income, जो हमने नीचे डिस्कस किया है, आपको कोई सेट ऑफ, कोई डिडक्शन, बेसिक एग्जम्पशन लिमिट कुछ नहीं मिलेगा, और वो इनकम के ऊपर स्ट्रेट 30% इज योर टैक्स लायबिलिटी. तो व्हाट आर द स्पेसिफाइड इनकम? तो अगर आप 85% स्पेंड नहीं कर पा रहे हो, सपोज आपने 75% स्पेंड किया, तो 25% जो है वो आपने एक्यूमुलेट भी नहीं किया या नहीं कर पा रहे हो फॉर व्हाटएवर रीजन, देन दैट 25% वुड बी टैक्सेबल स्ट्रेट एट द फुल रेट. ओके, पहले हम क्या करते थे, 25% के सामने 2,50,000 का डिडक्शन क्लेम करते थे, बाकी जो बचा हुआ था उसके ऊपर हम लोग टैक्स भरते थे. बट दैट इज नॉट अवेलेबल नाउ. व्हाटएवर इज एक्सेस यू हैव टू पे फुल टैक्स. देन डीम्ड इनकम, एज यू आर अवेयर दैट एक्यूमुलेशन का प्रोविजन है कि अगर आप स्पेंड नहीं कर सकते तो हम उसको एक्यूमुलेट करते हैं. एक्यूमुलेट कैसे करते हैं? 1 साल के लिए करते हैं या 5 साल के लिए करते हैं. एंड वो 1 साल का एक्यूमुलेशन के बाद आप उसको यूटिलाइज नहीं कर पाओ तो वो ईयर में दैट इज ट्रीटेड एज डीम्ड इनकम. या वो 5 साल में आप उसकी कंडीशन सेटिस्फाई नहीं कर पाओ या इनकम को यूटिलाइज नहीं कर पाओ, so that becomes an deemed income. So even such deemed income would be state taxable. I cannot say कि देखो 20 लाख का मेरा deemed income हुआ, but during the year मैंने खर्चा ज्यादा कर दिया है, वो मैं set off लूंगा. No, you are not eligible to claim any set off against such deemed income. Okay, then income not eligible for deduction on violation. So if I am not investing the surplus money in the specified modes, जो फिक्स डिपॉजिट है, गवर्नमेंट सिक्योरिटीज है, गवर्नमेंट वो लिस्ट है ना 11(5) में कि इसी में इन्वेस्ट करना है, इसके अलावा इन्वेस्ट करोगे तो दैट एग्जम्पशन वुड नॉट बी अवेलेबल टू यू. तो इफ आई डोंट कंप्लाई विद दैट, देन द इनकम फॉर दैट इनकम फ्रॉम सच इन्वेस्टमेंट, सपोज मैंने 50 लाख रुपया कोई शेयर्स में इन्वेस्ट कर दिया, रिलायंस के शेयर में, नाउ दैट इज नॉट ए स्पेसिफाइड मोड्स ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट, और वो 50 लाख के ऊपर मुझे 10 लाख रुपए का इनकम आ गया, that 10 lakhs का इनकम would be taxable as specified income at state 30%. Of course मेरा exemption withdraw वगैरह होगा वो अलग बात है, but इसका टैक्स कॉन्सिक्वेंस होगा कि वो इनकम के ऊपर, वो इन्वेस्टमेंट के ऊपर का जो इंटरेस्ट है, दैट इज टैक्सेबल एज स्पेसिफाइड इनकम एट 30%. Then deemed income, there is a restriction under section 13 that no benefit should be given to the trustees. अगर आप ट्रस्टी को बेनिफिट देते हो, then that value of benefit is taxable as income in the hands of trust. So now that deemed income will be treated as specified income, which means it is taxable at 30%. No deduction or allowance is allowed. Okay, and there is income not eligible because in some special circumstances you are eligible to spend money outside India also. So if you are not able to fulfill that condition, so thus such income will also be treated as specified income. So they are given these 5 categories of income which will be treated as specified income, and such specified income would be taxable at 30%. No deduction, allowance, set off shall be allowed in respect of such specified income. Last but not the least, and we are on time. So time limit for completion. Time limit for completion of assessment under 153. अभी आपने देखा होगा कि आपका assessment है 2021. Till last minute we were all getting on the edge कि time हो रहा है, notices नहीं आ रहे हैं, officer is not giving time, saying that time barring हो रहा है 31st March को getting. So what they did is they amended the law. This is also in a way retrospective amendment only. So what I have done for the sake of our understanding, before amendment, यानी ये amendment bill में आया था. Again, it was not originally proposed in the Finance Bill 22. It was proposed in the amendment bill which was presented on 23rd March in the Parliament. तो उसमें इन्होंने propose किया था, and 25th March को accept हो गया था. So I am just giving before amendment position and after amendment provision. This is the time limit for completion of assessment. Okay, regular assessment 143(2) का assessment, 143(3) का assessment का time limit है ये. Okay, so 18-19 देखो तो हमको 18 months था from the end of the assessment year, which means 31st March 19 से 18 months. So 31st March 20 and 31st December 20 was the time limit. Obviously वो सब COVID के थोड़ा extension वगैरह हुआ था उसका. Assessment in 1920 was 12 months. That is 31st March 20 was the due date. 2021 originally it was 18 months. Okay, which was reduced to, sorry, originally it was 12 months, which has now been increased to 18 months. So 12 months 2021 खत्म होता है 31st March 2021. So sorry, 31st March 2022, which was getting time barred in the last month. Then they introduced this amendment in the law, and they say that for assessment year 2021, the time limit is 18 months, which means now all the assessment for assessment year 2021, which is regular assessment under 143(3), 143(2), they are getting time barred on 30th September 2022. 21, 22 and onwards, 9 months from the end of the assessment year, which means आपका assessment year 21, 22 जिसका अभी तक वो notice भी नहीं आया है scrutiny का, उसका scrutiny का time barring is 31st December. Can you imagine this? As per the law which stand now, आपका 21, 22 का notice आएगा अभी, okay, April, May, June, July, and they want to complete this assessment by by December. I don't know how they are going to prove it or what they are going to do it, but they are trying to reduce the time to the extent possible and depend more on the artificial intelligence and reopen your case for 10 years if you are not compliant. So in a way, what they are doing is for the compliant assessing of SSC, they are saying that हम आपको बहुत देर तक 2-2 साल 3-3 साल तक assessment का तलवार आपके सर पे नहीं रखेंगे, इसको फटाफट हम निपटा देंगे. And what they will do, because the time limit is less, the number of cases they will select will also comparatively be lower. एक 12 महीने में केस करने का कैपेसिटी 18 महीने में, earlier it used to be 24 months, उसके पहले it used to be 30 months. Getting, तो चलते रहता था असेसमेंट, वो 3 साल असेसमेंट चलता था, फिर अपील तो हाई कोर्ट जाते थे, 15-15 साल हो जाता, 20-20 साल हो जाता था. ओके, अभी ट्रिब्यूनल इज आल्सो वेरी फास्ट. एंड अभी अगर हमारा असेसमेंट 2021 चल रहा है तो ट्रिब्यूनल में 16, 17, 18 तक के मैटर्स आने शुरू हो गए. बिकॉज दिस रिडक्शन ग्राउंड लेवल पे हो गया, सब जगह टाइम रिड्यूस हो रहा है, तो इट्स अ गुड स्टेप. सो द मेजर अमेंडमेंट व्हिच हैज हैपेंड व्हिच इज इंपैक्टिंग अस इज असेसमेंट ईयर 2021 का जो टाइम बारिंग 31st March 2022 था, वो अभी 30th September 22 कर दिया. इट वाज बिकॉज ऑफ वेरियस इश्यूज and they were not able to complete, COVID बोलो या whatever it is, faceless का issues बोलो, okay, so they have increased it. With this I complete my session. and we can take up question answers. I'm sorry that I have extended the time because 10 minutes हमने रखा था. So if everybody is comfortable and if I have permission, I have no issues in spending another 15, 20, whatever minutes is required to resolve the query. Over to you, sir. You're on a mute.
Shipra madam. Madam Shipra.
Yes, I'm here. Hello, sir. So this is Shipra Mittal.
Hello,
And
Shipra.
very good afternoon from ICI. It has been such an honor to be a part of this wonderful program. And on behalf of ICI, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed guest, Sir C.A. Pankaj sir, and also my sincere thanks to C.A. Shweta Jain, Secretary WIRC, who has briefed ICI motto so diligently. A wide round of applause and thanks to all the participants who made the event a memorable one. Uh, Also, CA Pankaj sir has explained us amendment provisions, TDS provisions, deterrence against tax evasions, black money, trust provisions, time limit for completion of assessments under Section 153 in such a detailed manner, making sure no confusions are remaining. At the end, I would like to give a wide round of applause and thanks to all the participants, which I can see were around 108, to making this event a memorable one. Thank you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to grace the occasion with the Thanksgiving vote. Thank you, sir.
Okay, 1 minute, just before we end the session. should we-
पंकज सर चैट बॉक्स में आपको क्वेश्चंस दिख रहे हैं? मैं दिखाऊं यहाँ से?
हाँ, यहाँ से दिखाओ ना यार.
तो यहाँ से दिखाऊं वर्ड में? एक मिनट.
हाँ.
एक मिनट.
So I'll start taking. There are some questions available here.
Yes.
Can an updated return be filed for assessment year 21-22? Now, this is a question everybody is asking. Even I have been asking this question. But if you ask my interpretation, there is no prohibition on filing return for assessment 21-22 as long as it is fitting within the 24 months criteria. So the answer is yes. You can file updated return for assessment year 21-22, but the procedures and formats and other things has not yet been notified. So we'll have to wait and get the details from the board in times to come.
सर एक मिनट.
आप ले लो, चलो इसमें बहुत सारे दूसरे भी आए हैं कमेंट्स. Yeah, in case of trust, expenditure will be allowed as application of income basis and not on accrual basis. Yeah, I don't remember any of this amendment. That only cash payment basis is allowed and not accrual basis. Application includes cash and accrual, which was earlier. My client has missed notice under section 139(9) for responding defect in return. What can we do now? It's a very difficult situation to be in. So ideally, if they have treated your return as invalid, then you will have to go for condonation. If it is less than 10 lakhs, the principal commissioner has authority. If it is more than 10 lakhs, you will have to go to the board. try your luck with writing an email to the CPC. If they have not closed or treated it as invalid, you can still proceed. Unless if there are some refunds involved, then yes, there is an issue. If there are no refunds, other things, so probably that's fine. That should not be a major issue for the SSA. But yes, 139.9 not responding is a serious problem. Whether a source of loan will need to be given for loan received before 1/4/23? No. That provision would apply only for on or after 1/4/2023. One follow-up question on section or with reference to 194, the company deduct tax under this section, then will it not be open that you will say that the deductee that you have to offer? Of course, that is whole objective, na? That the moment tax is deducted, the department will turn around and say that this is a benefit you received as under section 28 is taxable. Any benefit or purpose you decide on exercise of your business or profession, on account of your business or exercise of profession, is taxable as perquisite, as your income. Definitely it will be taxable. But now then if you can have argue the matter, then you will have to proceed, argue whether the officer agrees, then it's okay. If doesn't agree, go to the appeal. So this is with reference to section 194R, whether such sum will be income for the person. किधर गया वो? नीचे ऊपर आ जाओ ना, point number 5 देख रहे हैं. So this is with reference to section 194R, whether such amount will be income for that person or not. If not, the onus will be on that person to prove that yes, 4 and 5 same. Once it is reported as your income, it's for you to now show and prove. You can say that it was a dealer conference. I was given the prize for best employee, best trader or best vendor, or so client, customer, whatever it is. Then it's a different thing. But yes, onus is on us. With reference to 194, will TDS be applicable if business entity gives their client? Oh, definitely it will apply. ये ऐसे सब चीजों के लिए ही है, dealer, gold coins, gifts, etc. If it is more than 20,000, it would apply. 194 नहीं भी था, तभी भी ये gold coin and gifts were all taxable under section 28. वो अलग बात था कि कोई इसके ऊपर टैक्स भरता नहीं था, because department has no way to track it. But now the department has the way to track it because the tax will be deducted at source. So automatically everybody is under the net now. Additional tax of 25% or 50% of aggregate tax paid or net tax payable ना, सब डिडक्शन लेने के बाद आपने जो भी टैक्सेस पे कर दिया है, उसके बाद जो बिकॉज ऑफ द अपडेटेड रिटर्न जो एडिशनल टैक्स आ रहा है उसका 25% है, 50% आता है. यस, नेक्स्ट. ऊपर ले लो ना पूरा जितना जा सकते हो, 8, 9, 10 एक साथ में, इतना ही है, ठीक है, वेरी गुड. इफ एनी पर्सन has not filed return, now he wants to file with taxable income below 5 lakhs, can he file updated return? In my view, he can file. Tax नहीं आएगा, compliance हो जाएगा उसका. Is a person allowed to update the return for information which is already available? As long as you are not reducing your income, claiming additional refund, you can always update the return, and as long as it is within the time limit under section 139(8)(a), you can do that. Event management company only to file, or any event arranged by other company. The event management company. If I am in-house arranging, suppose if for my office I am organizing a cricket tournament, everything I am organizing, then this is not required. But if I appoint an event management company and they organize everything, they get the umpire, they get a commentator, they book the stadium, and they raise an invoice on me, then that's an event management company. That company would be required to file. This statement under section 285B. Will section 194R be applicable if company gifts car? Car to employees 194R में नहीं आएगा, वो तो perquisite में आ जाएगा ना, 17 में. तो वो इधर आने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ी, वो 192 में कवर हो जाएगा. उसमें लिखा है ना, on account of business. Yeah.
Done, sir. खत्म नहीं
हुआ. So thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity. Murtuza bhai, Shweta madam, Piyush sir, and thank you all participants for being there. Century के ऊपर था पूरा 2 घंटा, तो thank you. And अगर कोई भी आपको query है, my email ID has been given on the slide which will be uploaded. So you can anytime please message or send me your queries. I would try my best to answer each one of them. Thank you so much.
Thanks, sir. Bye.